Chapter 1361. Although the prescription that Gu Qingze had given the official said that it would take 3 months to see the effects, everyone present believed without a doubt that after 3 months, the official would definitely show up. The joy in Duke Ning's heart bloomed like a flower, and he was grinning from ear to ear. He had finally confirmed the identity of this young man. As expected, he was the #1 genius doctor in the world. He couldn't contain his joy. Zhao Rong, royal princess, however, curled her lips and said, "This isn't that great. Maybe that Jianghu swindler colluded with this Darren, or maybe he found out in advance that this Darren has hair loss and purposely put on a good show. Taking a month to see the effects of a single prescription, what kind of genius doctor is he? In this royal princess's opinion, he doesn't live up to his reputation." Duke Ning's eyebrows twitched. He originally wanted to scold her, but he suddenly had a thought and thought that Zhao Rong's words were somewhat reasonable. What if what had just happened was a two-man show put on by this young man and that official? Zhao Rong, everyone can see the medical skills of Dr. Gu. Everyone believes in him, so why are you the only one that doesn't agree? What is a silly little girl like you know? If you dare speak nonsense again, don't blame me for kicking you out. He reprimanded Zhao Rong with a stern face. But anyone with a discerning eye could see and hear that he was reprimanding Zhao Rong on the surface, but he was secretly trying to provoke her. It was obvious that he also didn't believe in Gu Qingze's medical skills. Gu Qingze raised his eyelids and indifferently said, "Lord Duke, there is no need to be angry. Your beloved daughter's words are reasonable. Since your beloved daughter doesn't believe me, then please ask your beloved daughter to randomly point out a person. I don't need to feel their pulse, and I don't even need to ask about their diagnosis to determine what illness they have. If I'm wrong, you can punish me however you want." As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air could be heard in the main hall. Everyone present thought, this young man has such big words. Without feeling their pulse or asking about their diagnosis, he can clearly tell a person's illness? Even if he's an immortal, it's impossible. Everyone revealed looks of disbelief on their faces. Even Empress Dowager Zhou couldn't help shaking her head. She looked at Mo Chuan and whispered in his ear, "Silly son, you've also been tricked by this swindler. He isn't the #1 divine doctor at all, so where did you find this swindler from? You didn't even verify his identity and just let him cure Xiao Bai's illness. No wonder Xiao Bai has been unconscious for several days. This widow thinks he's just bragging and colluding with others to swindle money. Once Duke Ning proves that he is a liar, he will be punished and kill him. That way no one will dare swindle and actually sway an emperor." Ning didn't Mo Ning's Xiao Qingze a smile and he was a lie, Mo Chuan's wrong and a smile to tell. He turned his head slightly and revealed a gentle smile to Qin Ning. He believed that Gu Qingze would definitely have a way to prove his identity. Although he didn't know why Gu Qingze would appear at Zhao Rong's banquet, he didn't come with good intentions. He was Ninger's master, so he wouldn't come to harm her. So he just silently watched Gu Qingze's performance. As for what kind of show he wanted to perform, he was very interested in it. "Very good, you'll let this princess point at anyone. Then, my father will do." Chapter 1362. Zhao Rong Region Princess did not believe a single word of Gu Qingze's words. She only wanted to find someone who would not collude with Gu Qingze and someone she could trust. Of everyone present, the only person she trusted was her father, Duke Ning. Duke Ning never would have thought that Zhao Rong would point at him. He first froze and then he was secretly happy. He purposely showed anger on his face and scolded Zhao Rong. "Nonsense. Zhao Rong, you are becoming more and more daring. You even dare to point at your father. After you left the capital, your father missed you so much that he fell ill and did not go to court for 3 years. After you returned to the capital, your father saw that you were safe and sound. Everyone in the capital knows about this. Aren't you purposely making things difficult for Dr. Gu?" Zhao Rong Region Princess had not thought of this. She thought that this wasn't making things difficult for Gu Qingze. Her father clearly thought that her question was too easy. Then this Region Princess will change to someone else. She prepared to change targets. Gu Qingze coldly cut her off. "No need. Your Highness is right, the High Duke is indeed suffering from a strange illness, but this illness is not caused by missing you, Your Highness." His gaze fell on Duke Ning and his lips curled up. "Duke Ning, what illness do you have? Do you want this commoner to say it in front of everyone?" Duke Ning and Zhao Rong Region Princess were both stunned. Zhao Rong Region Princess did not believe his words and immediately shouted, "Okay, since you can see it, then say it. This Region Princess knows my father's body the best. He is not sick at all. You might be able to fool others, but you can't fool me." Duke Ning's face darkened and he shouted, "Zhao Rong, shut up." He glared at Zhao Rong, Regent Princess, with a complicated expression. He didn't know if he was angry or strange at his precious daughter. Zhao Rong closed her mouth after being glared at by her father. She looked dazedly at Duke Ning and wondered what was wrong with her father. Could it be that her father really had a strange illness that she didn't know about? Duke Ning moved his lips and looked at Gu Qingze. He wanted to say something but stopped. Because Gu Qingze was not wrong. He really did have a strange illness. It was this strange illness that had tortured him for 3 years and caused him to not show his face in public. Everyone outside said that he missed his daughter so much that he became ill. When these words reached his ears, not only did he not avoid the rumor, but he sent people to spread it wantonly in the capital. Everyone praised him as a loving and good father, but no one knew the true reason behind it. He was plagued by a strange illness, but he didn't dare to summon an imperial physician to treat him. This was because this strange illness was really hard to talk about. If it was spread out through the mouth of an imperial physician, where would he, State Duke Ning, put his face? He did not have the face to go out. After Zhao Rong returned to the capital, he was overjoyed and his mood became much better. However, the strange illness that had tormented him for 3 years had not been eliminated. He had only thought of ways to hide it. The reason why he had spent so much effort to find out Gu Qingze's whereabouts and had been humbling himself and condescending to curry favor with him was all because of his hidden illness. He hoped that Gu Qingze could not see it, but he also hoped that he could see what illness he had. She hoped that Gu Qingze would not be able to tell, but she also hoped that he would be able to tell what illness she was suffering from. Chapter 1363. But for him to admit that he had a hidden illness in front of everyone, this was hard for him to say. Zhao Rong Princess waited for a while, but Duke Ning did not say anything. She glanced at Qin Ning from the corner of her eyes and saw a smile that didn't seem like a smile, as if he was mocking her. The fire in her heart began to burn. This surnamed Gu and that little fox spirit were on the same side. Both of them were not good people. He was not a divine doctor at all. He was sent into the palace by that little fox spirit to deceive everyone. That's right, it must be that little slut that wanted to curry favor with the Empress Dowager. She knew that the Empress Dowager was not feeling well, so she had this surnamed Gu pretend to be a divine doctor. She wanted to cure the Empress Dowager's illness and take credit for it. Humph, that little slut really has a good plan. This matter could be hidden from everyone, but it couldn't be hidden from the eyes of Zhao Rong Princess. She had to expose this swindler's true face in front of everyone. Father, say something. Tell this swindler that you aren't sick at all. Zhao Rong Princess confidently shouted in a loud voice. She had been by Duke Ning's side for the past few days and found that her father was eating well and sleeping well. He was full of energy and his face was glowing, not looking sick at all. Pa. Just as she finished speaking, a loud and clear slap landed on her face, causing her to be stunned for a moment. It also stunned everyone present. Duke Ning had actually slapped his beloved daughter in front of everyone. What was going on? Were their eyes playing tricks on them or were they dreaming? Father, you hit me? I am your blood-related daughter, you actually hit me? Zhao Rong also had a look of disbelief. The right side of her face was clearly imprinted with 5 red fingerprints. Duke Ning had used a lot of strength in this slap, causing her to feel a burning pain. But no matter how painful her face was, it couldn't compare to the pain in her heart. Tears began to fall from her eyes. Not only was her heart in pain, she also felt shame, especially after being slapped by her own father in front of Mo Chuan and all the ministers. Zhao Rong, kneel down for me and apologize to the divine doctor. Zhao Rong's tears did not soften Duke Ning's heart at all. His face was filled with anger as he shouted at Zhao Rong. Zhao Rong Princess had been pampered by her parents since she was young. The two of them loved her dearly and they never said anything harsh to her. She had never seen her father be this strict before. Her lips curled and she wanted to cry, but she was scared by Duke Ning's angry expression. She wanted to cry but she didn't dare. She sobbed but she stubbornly refused to kneel. Why should I kneel? I'm Zhao Rong Junju that was personally conferred by the emperor's older cousin. Who does he think he is? Father, have you gone senile? You actually made your daughter kneel to a Jianghu swindler. Zhao of. Another heavy slap landed on her cheek, causing her to stagger and almost fall. Duke Ning was filled with rage as he charged forward and slapped her twice. Although these 2 slaps were not heavy, Zhao Rong had never been hit by her father before. She didn't know what was going on with these slaps, not knowing where she was. Was she having a nightmare? The people around were stunned by Duke Ning's actions. The entire place was silent, one could hear a pin drop. Chapter 1364. You're not allowed to cry. Duke Ning shouted in a sharp voice that shook the roof. Zhao Rong Princess was frightened by her father's fierce look. She looked at her father in a daze with her mouth wide open as tears continued to fall from her eyes. Duke Ning turned around and said to Gu Qingze in a satisfied and apologetic voice, "Divine Dr. Gu, it is all because this duke did not teach my daughter well, allowing her to speak out of turn and offend the divine doctor. This duke will apologize to you on her behalf." He cupped his hands to Gu Qingze again. Gu Qingze softly said, "Your daughter made a mistake, so the duke will apologize on her behalf." "Sir Duke, does your waist not hurt?" His sudden words stunned Duke Ning. He subconsciously replied, "This duke does not have a waist injury." "Haha, if your beloved daughter keeps offending people, then Duke will have to apologize on her behalf. If you bow too much, I'm afraid that Duke's waist won't be able to take it. This commoner should prescribe some medicine for Duke's waist. It's better to prepare for a rainy day." After he finished speaking, he glanced at Zhao Rong Junju out of the corner of his eye and laughed coldly. The taunting in his voice could be heard by everyone present. He clearly did not want to let this go, wanting Zhao Rong to kneel down and apologize to him. Duke Ning gritted his teeth and said to Zhao Rong, "Bastard, why aren't you kneeling down and apologizing to the divine Dr. Gu?" Zhao Rong Princess' face turned red and white, then white and red. If she had to kneel down in front of everyone, it would be better if she died. "Cousin, they're all bullying me, even my father doesn't love me anymore. You have to help Zhao Rong." She suddenly cried as she threw herself at Emo Chuan's feet. She cried in sorrow as her two white jade hands grabbed onto Emo Chuan's dragon robe. She looked up as tears continued to fall from her cheeks. She was truly a pear blossom in the rain, looking very pitiful. When she was wrong, the first person she thought of was Emo Chuan. At this time she grabbed onto Emo Chuan like he was her last hope. As long as Emo Chuan showed her a bit of pity, she would be willing to die. Emo Chuan had no expression on his face as he silently waved his robe. Zhao Rong felt a strong force coming at her and she let go of his robe. Her beautiful eyes opened wide as she looked at Emo Chuan in a daze. She did not dare believe that Emo Chuan would mercilessly push her away at this time. Emo Chuan's eyes did not contain any emotions as he looked at her. Originally he only saw Zhao Rong as a brother and sister. When he found out that she had returned to the capital, he felt happy in his heart. However, after he found out about all of her evil deeds, how she used every method possible to hire assassins, and how she colluded with assassins from the Purple Heaven Pavilion to harm the life of the girl he loved, the brotherly love he had for her had long disappeared. If it wasn't for Empress Zhou, he would have personally punished Zhao Rong Princess. How could he still help for her? Filial piety is the most important of all virtues. Duke Ning's teachings are correct. Zhao Rong, you should listen to your father. Emo Chuan's words were like a bucket of ice water, pouring over Zhao Rong Princess' head. Her heart also turned cold. Emo Chuan's words were like a bucket of ice water, pouring over Zhao Rong Princess' head. Her heart also turned cold. "Empress Dowager, please help Zhao Rong." Zhao Rong Princess immediately charged at Empress Dowager Zhou. This was her last hope. She believed that Empress Dowager Zhou would not disappoint her. Zhao Rong Princess immediately jumped at Empress Dowager Zhou. This was her last hope. She believed that Empress Dowager Zhou would not disappoint her. Chapter 1365. Zhao Rong, stand up, don't cry. Your father doesn't love you, your cousin doesn't love you, but this widow loves you. Empress Dowager Zhou reached out to pull Zhao Rong's princess up, letting her sit beside her. She stroked her hair and said, "This widow will take care of this matter for you." She raised her eyes and looked at Gu Qingze with an unkind gaze. Then she turned to Duke Ning and spoke in a serious tone. "Duke Ning, why did you hit Zhao Rong without asking clearly? Zhao Rong is just speaking her mind. What did she do wrong? She suspects that this divine doctor's medical skills are fake, but this is for your own good. From this widow's point of view, this divine doctor's medical skills are still open to question. Whether he is a real divine doctor or a fake liar, it is not something that can be determined with just his mouth." Duke Ning bowed and said, "The Empress Dowager is right. This minister was too impatient just now, but everyone has seen the divine doctor's medical skills." Before he could finish, Empress Dowager Zhou cut him off and impatiently said, "What he did just now doesn't count. If he really has the skill, then let him take this widow's pulse and tell him about this widow's illness. This widow's body is best known by the doctors in the yard, so let him confront the doctors at that time. Whether he is a divine doctor or a swindler, the truth will be revealed, so why do you need to waste so much words?" Her voice was filled with dissatisfaction. It was clear that she was even blaming Duke Ning. Seeing the red finger marks on Zhao Rong's face, she felt her heart ache. She couldn't help glaring at Duke Ning and saying, "You're a father, how could you do this to your daughter? Aren't you afraid of Zhao Rong's pain?" Duke Ning had an awkward expression. Of course he couldn't bear to slap his beloved daughter, but he was riding a tiger, so he had to slap Zhao Rong a few times to appease Gu Qingze's dissatisfaction. This was because he needed Gu Qingze to cure his strange illness, so how could he dare offend Gu Qingze? But how could he tell Empress Dowager Zhou about this tactful thought? When Zhao Rong heard Empress Dowager Zhou's words, she began to cry even more. She cried into Empress Dowager Zhou's arms, unable to raise her head. Empress Dowager Zhou stroked Zhao Rong's hair while looking at Gu Qingze. "Divine Dr. Gu, did you hear this widow's words? You have the guts to enter the palace, but you don't have the guts to take a look at this widow's pulse?" She coldly said. She had controlled the harem for many years and was filled with momentum. Once her face sunk, the ministers all stopped breathing. No one dared to look at Empress Dowager Zhou's eyes and they all lowered their heads, not daring to take a deep breath. Gu Qingze calmly looked up at Empress Dowager Zhou. He did not reveal any fear because of the other side's aura and his expression was the same as usual. Empress Dowager Zhou saw this and admired this young man's courage. "All right, this commoner will take the Empress Dowager's pulse." Gu Qingze stood up from his chair and slowly walked to Empress Dowager Zhou's side. When they Empress, Teat looked they, Zhao him. Ru. Zhao Rong Princess gave a cold laugh in her heart. She looked up from Empress Dowager Zhou's embrace and glared at Gu Qingze with eyes filled with hatred. Of you Zhao, Ti, Zhao, Imaf Zhao, Dowager, Ti Wang of Zhou of Zt of Tu, Zhout, and of Zhout. Chapter 1366. Duke Ning's face fell and he shouted, "Zhao Rong, don't be rude." If it wasn't for the fact that Zhao Rong was being protected by Empress Dowager Zhou, he would have charged over and slapped his daughter. Empress Dowager Zhou did not believe Gu Qingze's medical skills, but he did not doubt it at all. Before today, he and Gu Qingze had never met before, and the matter of him suffering from an unmentionable illness was something that no one else in this world knew about besides himself. However, Gu Qingze didn't feel his pulse, nor did he ask for a diagnosis, yet with a single glance he was able to tell that he was suffering from an unmentionable illness. If this wasn't a divine doctor, then what was? Zhao Rong had Empress Dowager Zhou's support, so she was no longer afraid of her father. Her lips curled up. "Father, your daughter can't stand this swindler pretending to deceive people. Today, in front of the Emperor and the Empress Dowager, I will take off this divine doctor's mask." When she thought of the scene of Gu Qingze and Chen Ning together, her heart filled with hatred. The relationship between the two of them was not shallow, so if she slapped Gu Qingze's face in front of everyone, it would be the same as slapping that little fox spirit's face. Duke Ning was filled with rage because of Zhao Rong, but there was nothing he could do. He thought that no matter what, he had hid his daughter in front of everyone so that divine Dr. Gu would look at him. When he had a request, he wouldn't reject him, right? It was like Gu Qingze did not hear Zhao Rong's taunting words at all. He looked at Empress Dowager Zhou for a while, first nodding then shaking his head. Empress Dowager Zhou sat in the chair, not moving at all. It was like she did not see any of his expressions, but her eyes were like cold lightning as she looked at him. The Empress Dowager's illness, this commoner has already seen it. Gu Qingze took a step back. "Oh." Empress Dowager Zhou's brows jumped up and she said, "You really don't need to feel my pulse to see what illness this widow has?" Gu Qingze softly replied, "Of course. If I didn't even have this bit of skill, the title of #1 divine doctor would not have fallen onto this commoner's head." His expression was calm, but the tone of his voice was shockingly loud. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air in unison. Chen Ning felt this was funny in her stomach. She was used to Gu Qingze's strange temper, so no matter what he said or did, she would not be surprised at all. "Very good, since Mr. Divine Doctor is this confident, Su Jin, immediately send someone to summon the doctors from the doctor yard. Also, bring this widow's medical history over." Empress Dowager Zhou turned to order Su Jin. Su Jin asked in a soft voice, "Is it Dr. Zhang?" Because in this period of time, Empress Dowager Zhou's body had been taken care of by Dr. Zhang, so he was very clear on Empress Dowager Zhou's condition. Empress Zhou said, "Empress Dowager Xiao is Xiao Xiao. Is this Xiao is Xiao Su is. Ti Rong Ti Su, Xiao Xiao Ti Long Ti I Chu and Su, Xiao is Xiao Yang, Ti Ti Zhout, Zhout Zhao Zhao. Not long after, Dr. Zheng and Doctor Hu came to the Qingyan Palace and bowed to Emo Chuan and Empress Dowager Zhou. "Two doctors, have you brought this widow's medical history?" Empress Dowager Zhou asked. Replying to Empress Dowager, "I have brought it. This box contains Empress Dowager's many years of medical history, not a single page is missing, not a single page is missing." Chapter 1367. Su Jin came forward to receive it. Opening the box, she took out a thick medical history book and handed it over to Empress Dowager Zhou. Empress Dowager Zhou flipped through a few pages and saw all the illnesses she had suffered over the years. From the date of the illness, the type of medicine she had taken, the method of treatment, and the effects after taking the medicine, it was all clearly recorded in small letters. It was clear that the doctor's doctor had paid a lot of attention to her body. She closed the medical history book and sighed with emotion in her heart. She said to Gu Qingze, "Mr. Gu, this widow's medical history is here. If you can see what illness this widow has, just tell me." The hall suddenly became quiet. The ministers couldn't help but look at Gu Qingze. Doubt, disbelief, contempt, and all sorts of other expressions appeared on their faces. This divine doctor surnamed Gu had boasted quite a bit. Now that the Empress Dowager had sent over the doctor's medical history, she wanted to see how he would defend himself and muddle his way through. It had to be known that the Empress Dowager had a pair of wise eyes. She would never rub sand in the sand. Chen Ning had a card up her sleeve. She looked at Gu Qingze with a smile that wasn't a smile and then looked away without a trace. She understood Gu Qingze too well. He never did anything he wasn't confident in. Since he dared to boast in front of everyone, it meant he had seen something. Gu Qingze cleared his throat and calmly said, "Empress Dowager, not long ago, you were poisoned by a kind of flower poison. Because of this flower poison, you couldn't sleep peacefully and suffered from insomnia. This symptom lasted for about a year. Later, it might be because you drank the water made from the roots of this flower that the poison in your body was cured, but insomnia will still occasionally occur. Is what this commoner said correct?" Hearing this, Su Jin's face fell and she involuntarily cried out, "You. How did you know?" As soon as she said this, she knew she had said something wrong. She quickly closed her mouth and looked down with a look of fear, but the surprise in her heart did not decrease at all. Empress Dowager Zhou had a look of ridicule in her eyes. She picked up the teacup and picked up the tea leaves floating on the surface. Hearing Gu Qingze's words, her hand holding the teacup couldn't help trembling. But then she revealed a faint cold smile and looked over at Chen Ning. She was thinking, the matter of me being poisoned by this flower poison, only a few people know and this Chen Ning is one of them. She must have told this surnamed Gu about my situation. That's why this surnamed Gu's words aren't wrong. Chen Ning knew that Empress Dowager Zhou's matter was related to the royal family's secret and could not be leaked, so she had never told anyone before, not even half a word to Gu Qingze. Gu Qingze's words were accurate because he had observed Empress Dowager Zhou's expression. This kind of medical skill, even she couldn't help admiring it. However, the people in the main hall didn't know the reason. When they heard Gu Qingze's words and Su Jin's exclamation, they all revealed shocked expressions. Could it be that this hairless brat was right about the Empress Dowager's illness? Dowd the Jin Ning the flower poison? Why didn't they know anything? Especially the two doctors who were confused. They looked at each other and said at the same time, "Nonsense, when has the Empress Dowager been poisoned by a flower poison? It's clearly nonsense." Chapter 1368. Empress Dowager Zhou raised her hand and stopped Dr. Tseng and Dr. Hu. She turned to Gu Qingze and said, "You're half right about this matter. This widow is indeed suffering from insomnia only." She paused and then said, "This widow is not poisoned by any flower and everyone knows that this widow likes flowers. This widow's palace is filled with flowers that bloom all year round. Are you saying that the flowers in this widow's palace are poisonous flowers?" She denied being poisoned by the spring jade flower and Emo Chuan knew the reason behind it. His lips were tightly shut and he did not say a word. Chen Ning's eyes sparkled as she guessed Empress Dowager Zhou's meaning. She did not want everyone to know about this matter and Empress Dowager Zhou already knew. Perhaps the person who sent the flowers to harm her was in the main hall today. Gu Qingze did not say a word and just looked at Empress Dowager Zhou without blinking, like he was trying to tell if she was telling the truth or lying. Because he believed in his own judgment it was definitely not wrong. Only he did not understand why Empress Dowager Zhou was not willing to admit it. Empress Dowager Zhou was being looked at by his eyes, but her face did not turn red at all. She calmly said, "Mr. Gu, what else have you seen?" Gu Qingze softly said, "The Empress Dowager's body did not have any major problems before. Other than insomnia, she would occasionally have a headache, be afraid of the cold, be numb to her hands and feet, be short of breath, get tired easily, be irritated easily, get angry easily, and have a bad appetite. Every time the seasons change, she would get a cold, but none of these are major problems. When he began, Empress Dowager Zhou was listening with a calm expression. Hearing this, the muscles at the corner of her eyes began to twitch and she almost couldn't sit still. Dr. Hu and Dr. Tseng's mouths were wide open, looking like their jaws were about to fall off. They knew Empress Dowager Zhou's body like the back of their hands. The problems Gu Qingze mentioned were all the same as what was recorded in medical history. The two of them had gone to Dr. Zhang's palace before and learned of the number one divine doctor's name, but the two of them never would have thought that Gu Qingze's medical skills would be this deep and profound. It simply made them sigh in amazement, leaving them in the dust. As long as the ministers saw the expressions of Empress Dowager Zhou and the other two doctors, they knew that Gu Qingze was right. They immediately let out a buzz of disbelief. The contempt, disdain, and doubt in their eyes were all swept away and all that was left was shock and admiration. Duke Ning revealed a faint smile, unable to conceal the joy in his heart. The higher Gu Qingze's medical skills were, the more he knew that he didn't choose the wrong person, and even more so, he didn't find the wrong person. Gu Qingze could definitely cure his hidden illness. Empress Dowager, is what he said correct? Zhao Rong Junju still didn't dare believe that this country bumpkin really knew how to treat an illness. She didn't give up and asked. Empress Dowager Zhou slowly nodded. He is completely right, this widow does indeed have these illnesses, but these illnesses don't always flare up, so it isn't considered a serious illness. Emmer Yu Dowager Li, Amies Li Shi, Yu Dowager Long Gu Iu. Mr. Gu, these are all old illnesses. This widow wants to ask you, this widow's body was not well yesterday and even the doctor could not tell what illness this widow had. Can you tell me a thing or two? If you don't have the confidence, you can take a pulse for this widow. Chapter 1369. Gu Qingze said without any hesitation, what's so hard about this? There is no need to check your pulse at all. Empress Dowager, your eyes are blue, your lips are white, and your forehead is hot. You also feel cold all over and your stomach is aching at the same time? With this, Empress Dowager Zhou could not hide the shock in her eyes. She put down the teacup in her hand and nodded again, you're right. Chen Ning couldn't help looking at Mo Chuan, thinking that she had wronged Empress Dowager Zhou. It seems like Empress Dowager Zhou really was sick yesterday and she wasn't trying to find an excuse to keep Mo Chuan and Zhao Rong together. Mo Chuan's thoughts were the same as Chen Ning's. He thought that Empress Dowager Zhou was using her illness to keep him and call Zhao Rong into the palace to match him and Zhao Rong. Although he served Empress Dowager Zhou for an entire night, he did not say a single word to Zhao Rong. After Empress Dowager Zhou fell asleep, Zhao Rong took the chance to talk to him but he ignored her. Hearing Gu Qingze's words, his heart filled with regret. He looked at Empress Dowager Zhou and said in a low voice, Mother. Empress Dowager Zhou understood his meaning. She patted his hand but did not say anything. Divine Dr. Gu, what illness does the Empress Dowager have? Since you can see it, then you must have a way to cure my mother, right? Mo Chuan's heart was filled with guilt. He turned to Gu Qingze and spoke with a sincere expression. This was the first time he had put down his pride in front of Gu Qingze. Gu Qingze acted like he did not hear his words and did not even look at Mo Chuan. He thought about it and said, Empress Dowager, if you don't mind, this commoner wants to use acupuncture. Of course this widow doesn't mind. Empress Dowager Zhou nodded without any hesitation. After a night of sleep, not only did her illness not improve, it became even worse. Now her chest felt stuffy and her stomach was in pain. Only because today was Zhao Rong's birthday banquet, she forced herself to come to the banquet. However, her body was not well so her expression was not good. In the eyes of others, they thought her temper was acting up and no one dared to breathe loudly. Gu Qingze took out a golden needle and started from Empress Dowager Zhou's index finger, slowly inserting it. It followed the meridians of the hand's minor Einhart meridian all the way up to the extreme spring meridian, inserting golden needles all the way. After the acupuncture, Empress Dowager Zhou felt a warm feeling in her stomach. The pain disappeared without a trace and she no longer felt cold. She couldn't help opening her eyes. Empress Dowager, what do you think? Gu asked. Comfortable, I feel very comfortable. My abdomen no longer hurts but my forehead is still throbbing with pain. Her brows relaxed and a smile appeared on her face. Although her forehead still hurt a little, it was much better than before when her entire body was in pain. Gu Qingze did not say anything as he picked up 2 golden needles and pierced them into Empress Dowager Zhou's left and right temples. Then he gently twisted the needles. Really? Really? It doesn't hurt at all. Empress Dowager Zhou couldn't help closing her eyes and leaning back in her chair. Imperial Physician Hu and Imperial Physician Zeng looked at each other, both dumbfounded. Empress Dowager Zhou's body wasn't feeling well and she summoned the 2 of them into the palace, but after taking her pulse for a while, they couldn't find anything wrong with her. Empress Dowager Zhou was so angry that she kicked them out. Chapter 1370. Divine Dr. Gu, what kind of illness does this widow have? Is it serious? Empress Dowager Zhou had always called Gu Qingze Mr. Gu, but now she called him Divine Dr. Gu. This showed that she had already recognized Gu Qingze's medical skills and his status as a divine doctor. Gu Qingze moved the needles while replying, "This is the night wind entering the body and the cold air is too heavy, it isn't a big problem." The Empress Dowager must have suddenly woken up from her sleep and was covered in a cold sweat. Then she opened the window and let the night wind in. Empress Dowager Zhou gave a surprised, ah sound as she revealed a shocked expression. She had been woken up by the loud noises from the palace. She came out of bed before putting on her clothes and walked to the window, looking out from the open window. The night wind was cold and she was covered in a thin layer of sweat. The wind felt very comfortable on her body and she unknowingly stood there for a long time. She never thought that she would fall ill because of this. Not bad, not bad. Divine Dr. Gu is not wrong at all. She was now confident in Gu Qingze's medical skills because only she knew about the situation at that time. Even Su Jin wasn't by her side. After acupuncture, the Empress Dowager's illness will be cured. As for those old illnesses the Empress Dowager doesn't care about, it will take a bit of effort to cure them. Those old illnesses must have tortured the Empress Dowager for over 20 years, right? Gu Qingze casually asked while applying the needles. Empress Dowager Zhou nodded. She looked at Gu Qingze with sparkling eyes and saw that the other side had a calm expression. When he was treating her, he didn't seem panicked or nervous at all, nor was he at a loss. It was like he was treating a normal person. This kind of calm demeanor, it far surpassed the ministers and nobles of the court. She didn't like Gu Qingze at all, but now she was more and more appreciative of his calm demeanor. Those old illnesses, it doesn't matter if they can be cured or not, this widow is already used to it. Empress Dowager Zhou revealed a faint smile. She was most clear on her old illnesses. Since this commoner can see the Empress Dowager's illness, then I have a way to cure it. The Empress Dowager doesn't need to worry, I will give you a prescription. As long as you follow the prescription your old illnesses will be cured. After Gu Qingze finished applying the needles, he took a step back and slowly said this. Empress Dowager Zhou looked at him in disbelief. Really? Gu Qingze didn't answer. He said to the little supervisor beside him, "Bring me a pen and paper." The little eunuch hurriedly ran to fetch the brush, ink, paper and ink stone. He now knew that Gu Qingze was an important personage that even the Empress Dowager attached great importance to, so his attitude was very respectful as he presented them with both hands. Gu Qingze waved his brush and wrote a prescription. He looked at Imperial Physician Zeng and Imperial Physician Zhou and said, "Imperial Physicians, do you want to check if this prescription can be used?" Although this was the first time he was treating a member of the royal family, he knew that the royal family had a rule of testing medicine. As long as it was something that entered the mouth, it had to be tested for poison before it could be consumed. Yes, yes. The 2 imperial physicians were pleasantly surprised and quickly reached out to take it. They had never dreamed that they would be able to see the prescription written by the #1 genius doctor. In particular, Divine Dr. Gu actually said that after the Empress Dowager took the medicine according to the prescription, the old illness that had tortured her body for many years could be cured. This was simply incredible. Such a prescription must be carefully studied. Chapter 1371. This prescription is very good. There's no problem at all. The 2 doctors said at the same time. Because the patient was Empress Dowager Zhou, Gu Qingze only used a few gentle herbs. This way the effects wouldn't be as fast, but if it was taken for a long time, it could eliminate all of Empress Dowager Zhou's old illnesses. Since the 2 doctors say there's no problem, then this widow will take this medicine. Empress Dowager Zhou slapped the table and said, "Go and boil some medicine for this widow now." The 2 imperial physicians agreed in unison. They held the prescription like they were holding a rare treasure and quickly went to brew the medicine. Zhao Rong Princess bit her lips, almost not daring to believe what had just happened. Not long ago the Empress Dowager was questioning Gu Qingze like she was, but in the blink of an eye, the Empress Dowager's attitude had completely changed. She still wanted to take this country bumpkin's medicine? Moreover, this was a banquet for her birthday, but once this country bumpkin Gu Qingze appeared, all the limelight, all the glory and everyone else's gazes were all attracted by him. She wanted to complain to Empress Dowager Zhou, but after Gu Qingze gave Empress Dowager Zhou acupuncture, Empress Dowager Zhou closed her eyes to rest, so she didn't dare disturb her. Very soon, 2 imperial physicians came back with a bowl of steaming hot medicine that had just been brewed. Zhao Rong Princess' eyes lit up and she immediately said, "Empress Dowager, the medicine is ready. Zhao Rong wants to personally test it for you." Empress Dowager Zhou opened her eyes and said with a faint smile, "There's no need to test it. This widow believes in the ancient divine doctor's prescription." Zhao Rong Princess did not give up. "Empress Dowager, just let Zhao Rong try it. It said that you can know a person's face but not their heart. Who knows what kind of heart this country bumpkin has?" "Zhao Rong, don't speak nonsense." The one scolding her this time was not Duke Ning, but rather Empress Dowager Zhou. Zhao Rong Princess was shocked. Seeing Empress Dowager Zhou's serious expression, she did not dare say anything else. "Bring the medicine over, this widow wants to take it now." Empress Dowager Zhou did not doubt Gu Qingze's medical skills at all and she did not doubt his character at all. Gu Qingze took the bowl of medicine and gave it to Empress Dowager Zhou. "This medicine is very bitter, but good medicine is good for illness. Empress Dowager, you don't have to be afraid of bitterness. It's best to drink it in one go and you'll see the effect very quickly." Empress Dowager Zhou said with a nod, "This widow has suffered many hardships over the years. What does this bit count for?" She picked up the bowl of medicine and drank it all in one gulp, not even making it a bit. Su Jin quickly gave her a cup of tea to rinse her mouth, but she was also rejected by Empress Dowager Zhou. For a moment the hall was very quiet. Everyone was looking at Empress Dowager Zhou, wanting to know what effect she would have after taking the medicine. Su Jin's expression was very nervous. Her hands were clenched and her palms were covered in sweat, afraid that Empress Dowager Zhou would feel uncomfortable. "Empress Dowager, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" she asked in a soft voice. Empress Dowager Zhou did not say anything. Empress, after a while, Empress Dowager Zhou's expression became more and more relaxed. Her lips slightly curled up, revealing a faint smile. After a while, she began to snore softly. No one would have thought that the usually dignified Empress Dowager Zhou would actually fall asleep in front of everyone at the banquet. Chapter 1372. Su Jin saw the smile on Empress Dowager Zhou's face and her eyes filled with tears of excitement. She kept wiping her tears with a handkerchief. Only she knew how much pain and torture Empress Dowager Zhou had suffered. In the hall, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Empress Dowager Zhou's condition was improving and they all felt better. There was only one person who was filled with hatred in her heart, almost grinding her teeth to pieces. She was Zhao Rong Regent Princess. The fingernails hidden in her sleeves dug deep into her palms. She never thought that Empress Dowager Zhou would actually fall asleep. Now everyone was treating that country bumpkin Gu Qingze like a god. Thinking that he was with that little fox spirit Chen Ning, she was filled with hatred. Don't worry. Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager." Zhao Rong couldn't help coming forward, wanting to wake Empress Dowager Zhou up. If Empress Dowager Zhou continued to sleep like this, if someone bullied her, who would help her? Now even her father, Duke Ning, was wholeheartedly trying to please that country bumpkin. "Regent Princess, don't wake the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager hasn't had a good night's sleep in a long time," Su Jin said in a soft voice, but she gave Zhao Rong Regent Princess a warning look, looking very dissatisfied. Zhao Rong Regent Princess hatefully thought, "Humph, now even a servant dares to order me around, not putting me in her eyes at all." The ministers in the hall looked at each other, not daring to breathe loudly. They all had very awkward expressions on their faces. This was the birthday banquet Empress Dowager Zhou had specially prepared for Zhao Rong Regent Princess. But before the banquet even started, Empress Dowager Zhou had already fallen asleep. Should this banquet continue or not? Everyone looked around and finally looked at Mo Chuan. Mo Chuan looked at Empress Dowager Zhou's calm sleeping face and his heart fell like a stone. Although Gu Qingze had hit a nail on his head before, he was filled with deep gratitude towards Gu Qingze. Not for anything else, just treating the illness that had plagued his mother for so long was enough for him to be grateful for a lifetime. Only he knew that if he went to ask Gu Qingze, the other side would continue to hit a nail on his head. In front of all the ministers he would lose the emperor's face. So he gave Qinning a meaningful look and then slightly gestured to Gu Qingze with his lips, indicating for her to ask. Qinning understood his meaning. She thought that if she asked him, perhaps she would be rebuffed, but it was better than letting Emochuan be rebuffed. She asked softly, Dr. Gu, how long will the Empress Dowager sleep? In front of outsiders, it was inconvenient for her to call him master. However, Gu Qingze raised his eyes and fiercely glared at her. It was obvious that his anger towards her had not subsided. Qinning secretly stuck out her tongue. She heard Gu Qingze coldly say, this medicine has sleeping properties, so the Empress Dowager needs to sleep for at least 12 hours. You don't need to worry about waking the Empress Dowager up. Right now, even thunder won't wake her up. I suggest that you send the Empress Dowager back to her palace, that way she can sleep more peacefully. Emochuan immediately ordered, someone quickly bring a soft sedan over. Very quickly, the little eunuchs brought over a soft sedan. Emochuan personally picked up Empress Dowager Zhou and carefully placed her in the sedan, sending people back to the peaceful life palace. Su Jin was worried about Empress Dowager Zhou, so she also went. Chapter 1373. This young man's luck was just too good. As soon as he entered the palace, he showed off his skills in front of the Empress Dowager. If his medicine was effective and could cure the Empress Dowager's illness, then his future would be limitless. If he could curry favor with this great god, not only could he have the divine doctor cure his illness, he could also borrow his strength to enter the Empress Dowager's eyes. Entering the Empress Dowager's eyes was the same as entering the Emperor's eyes. His meteoric rise was just around the corner. Everyone had the same thought. Everyone immediately surrounded Gu Qingze. Mr. Divine Doctor's medical skills, it really is an eye-opener. It's rare in the heavens and hard to find on earth. The name of the Divine Doctor, it really is well deserved. This time, everyone's praises came from their hearts and their tone was sincere. It was completely different from the previous flattery. But Gu Qingze acted like he did not hear them at all. He ignored everyone and pointed at Qinning as he said, the chair. Everyone was dumbfounded, not knowing what he meant. Qinning pursed her lips into a smile. She walked over and pushed the special chair in front of him and said, Divine Dr. Gu, please sit. The ministers finally understood and they couldn't help secretly clicking their tongues. They thought that this young man was really bold, actually daring to order the Empress to do things for him. The Divine Doctor really was a divine doctor, his face was really big. Gu Qingze sat back down in his chair and did not even look at Qinning. He returned to his seat and picked up a cup of fruit juice, drinking it as if there was no one else present. Qinning knew that he had a strange temper, but she was not angry. With a faint smile, she returned to her seat. The Zhaorong princess looked at this scene with a suspicious gaze, feeling a little confused. Aren't these two people in cahoots? Why did this country bumpkin not have a friendly attitude towards the little fox spirit? Not only did he speak in a bad tone, he even ordered her to do things in front of all these ministers. It was clear that he did not put her, the Empress, in his eyes. A look of joy flashed in her eyes. Her master had once said that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This divine Dr. Gu had clearly fallen out with Qinning, so why didn't she take this chance to win him over and deal with that little fox spirit? She opened her small mouth and revealed a sweet smile. She walked in front of Duke Ning and sweetly said, Father, your daughter knows her wrongs. I was rude and offended the divine Dr. Gu. Your daughter is willing to apologize to the divine Dr. Gu. Duke Ning was surprised and looked at her. Zhaorong, do you really know your wrongs? You're willing to apologize to the divine doctor? He knew that this daughter of his was arrogant and stubborn. Once she set her mind on something, she would do it her own way without any hesitation. Now that she was willing to put down her identity and apologize to others, it was really unbelievable. Father, I also have a pair of eyes and I can see it clearly. The ancient godly doctor is truly worthy of his reputation. I said something wrong, so of course I have to apologize to the godly doctor. Zhaorong Juanju's face was slightly red. She tugged at Duke Ning's sleeve and shook it like a little girl. Duke Ning laughed and said, All right, then father will take you to the divine doctor to apologize. He pulled the Zhaorong princess' hand and walked in front of Gu Qingze. He laughed and said, Divine Dr. Gu, my daughter knows her wrongs and has come to apologize to the divine doctor. I hope the divine doctor can be magnanimous and forgive this little girl. Chapter 1374. Zhaorong Junju was born to be high and mighty and was used to bossing people around. Even though she was apologizing right now, her demeanor and actions still made it seem like a Junju was a cut above others. Duke Ning saw this and couldn't help knitting his brows. He wanted to scold her a few times, but thinking about it, his daughter was very proud, so it wasn't easy for her to say these words. At least she wasn't targeting the divine Dr. Gu or saying anything bad to him, so he was already thanking the heavens. Gu Qingze did not seem to care about the Zhaorong princess's insincere apology. Sir Duke, today is your daughter's birthday, this commoner can't come empty-handed. Here is a snow silk robe. If your daughter doesn't mind, you can give it to her as a gift. After he said this, he took out the snow silk robe and placed it in front of Duke Ning. What? Snow silk robe? Duke Ning was shocked as he looked at the ordinary-looking gray robe. His hands trembled as he received it. It was light and soft as if it was nothing. He had seen many things, so he knew that the snow silk robe could not be damaged by swords or water. It could be considered a treasure of the heavens and earth, but this kind of legendary item could only be found by luck. Even with his wealth, he couldn't obtain a snow silk robe even if he sold his entire family's fortune. Now Gu Qingze had casually given it to him. It was hard for him to believe this was real. Gu, divine Dr. Gu, is this really the snow silk robe? Duke Ning's voice was trembling from excitement. The Zhaorong princess looked at the robe in his hand with disdain. It was gray without any luster. If she wore it, she would look like a gray crow, so she didn't care about it at all. What snow silk robe? She had never heard of it before. If she didn't want to win over Gu Qingze, she would have already thrown this tattered robe back at his face. Father, what is this snow silk robe? Is it very good? She curled her lips and asked in an uncaring voice. Duke Ning's excitement could be seen on his face. Silly girl, this snow silk robe is a treasure of the heavens and the divine Dr. Gu has given you such a precious gift. Why haven't you thanked the divine doctor yet? Divine doctor, thank you for giving me this gift. After the Zhaorong princess said this, she raised her chin and looked at Qin Ning with a proud gaze. This was because she saw Qin Ning staring at the snow silk robe without blinking. Although she did not know what was so good about it, the little fox spirit cared so much about it, and this robe was given to her by the divine Dr. Gu, so she was very proud. Qin Ning bit her lips and looked away, not saying a single word. She had already recognized that this snow silk robe was the one that Gu Qingze had given her yesterday. She felt that it was too precious to accept, so Gu Qingze had taken it back in a fit of anger and threatened to give it to someone else. Could it be that he had already planned to give this snow silk robe to Zhaorong region princess as a congratulatory gift? She had always thought that Gu Qingze's anger towards her would dissipate soon. She never would have thought that in a fit of anger, he would give that incomparably precious snow silk robe to Zhaorong Junju, who had always been against her. If she knew this, she would have taken it without any hesitation. Zhaorong, why aren't you wearing this snow silk robe yet? You have to remember the divine Dr. Gu's feelings for you. Duke Ning had a happy expression on his face. The Zhaorong princess looked at the normal robe in her hand and her heart was filled with unwillingness. Chapter 1375. Silly girl, you don't know just how magical this robe is. Duke Ning glared at Zhaorong Junju with dissatisfaction and took the snow silk robe from her hands. He put the robe on his left arm and called in a guard who was guarding the door. He pulled out a knife from his waist, and with a flash of the knife, he chopped down on his left arm. Ah! Father! What are you doing? Sir Duke! The Zhaorong princess and the ministers all cried out in surprise. Although Zhaorong had martial arts, Duke Ning's speed was just too fast. She was scared silly, and when she reacted, Duke Ning's blade had already chopped down. She closed her eyes, thinking that her father's arm would be cut in half by this blade. Then she heard Duke Ning's happy laughter ring out. Ha ha, it really is a treasure that even swords can't cut. The Zhaorong princess opened her eyes and saw that Duke Ning's left arm was perfectly fine, without a single wound on it. There wasn't even a single mark on the snow silk robe. This really is a good treasure. A treasure of the heavens and earth, it really is a treasure of the heavens and earth. The court officials surrounded Duke Dingguo, all envious and full of praise. They were simply envious of Duke Ding's good luck and even more envious of the Zhaorong princess. How did the two of them enter the eyes of the divine Dr. Gu, giving them this kind of treasure without even blinking? Don't look at how the divine Dr. Gu didn't have an official position, but the gift he gave was something that all of their gifts added together couldn't compare to. The Zhaorong princess was pleasantly surprised. She quickly took the snow silk robe from her father's hands and lovingly stroked it. Divine Dr. Gu, thank you for your gift. This princess really likes this robe. She smiled from ear to ear. Ever since she entered the palace, Gu Qingze had not looked at her. He finally looked up at this time and revealed a smile that wasn't a smile as he looked at her. It's good as long as the princess doesn't despise my poor gift. I don't despise it, of course this princess doesn't despise it. The Zhaorong princess smiled as she held the snow-soaked robe, coming in front of Emo Chuan like she was presenting a treasure. Cousin, look at this treasure that the divine Dr. Gu gave me. What are you giving me as a birthday present? Emo Chuan coldly said, now that you have this treasure, how could you care about other people's gifts? You won't care about anything this one gives you, so you should just forget about it. Zhaorong pouted when she heard this. She stamped her foot and said, Cousin, no matter how good the gift others give me, it can't compare to what you gave me. Even if you gave me a blade of grass, I would still treat it as a treasure. Very good. Someone go to the yard outside and cut some grass. We'll give it to the Zhaorong princess as a gift. Emo Chuan had an expressionless face as he pushed the boat with the current. Princess Zhaorong's face immediately turned green. Xiao Ru, who was standing behind Chen Ning, couldn't help laughing. The Zhaorong princess was filled with rage, but she couldn't take it out on Emo Chuan. Hearing Xiao Ru's laughter, it was like a bomb had been ignited and she was instantly filled with rage. You lowly servant girl, how dare you sneer at me when I'm talking to my cousin, the Emperor? King. Today I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your master, you unruly servant. Her right hand touched her waist and a snake-like whip flew out, slashing at Xiao Ru's face. This whip was fast and fast. As long as it hit, Xiao Ru's face would be split open. Chapter 1376. Zhaorong, you can't use weapons in front of the Emperor. Duke Ning scolded her, but Zhaorong Junju ignored him. The whip in her hand did not stop as it looked like Xiao Ru was about to bleed. Emo Chuan knit his brows and reached out with his right hand, grabbing the tip of the whip. With a gentle shake, the whip broke into pieces and fell to the ground. You're still casually hurting people today. Do you really think this one's words are nothing? Emo Chuan's voice was very stern. Zhaorong's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Emo Chuan in a daze. She felt that her royal cousin had suddenly become very strange and she did not recognize him at all. He was not the cold and silent cousin from her memories, but he was very gentle to her. Cousin, you don't love Rong, or anymore. You don't love Rong, or anymore. You're actually speaking to Rong, or like this for a servant. Her tears came out as she ran in front of Duke Ning and threw herself into his embrace. She cried and said, Father, cousin is bullying Rong, or... Duke Ning pushed her away with a frown and shouted, This is a public place, don't cause trouble. What happened just now was clearly your fault. This servant did something wrong, so her master will teach her a lesson. It's not your turn to make a move. Why are you crying like this? You're letting people laugh at you for nothing. Why aren't you apologizing to the Emperor? Everyone could hear his indirect words. He was scolding his daughter on the surface, but he was secretly ridiculing Chen Ning as the Empress for not teaching a servant. Chen Ning just revealed a faint smile and pretended not to hear it. There was a saying that picking gold and silver was called a scolding. She would not rush to pick up this kind of trash. Xiao Ru, come here. She pulled Xiao Ru's hand and took off a jade bracelet from her wrist, putting it on Xiao Ru's hand. Young miss, this. What is this? Xiao Ru stuttered, still not recovering from the fright. Jade can ward off evil. Wearing it on your body can ward off evil. In the future, any evil and dirty things will stay far away from you. Ah, this is too precious, this servant can't take it. Xiao Ru was shocked and quickly took it off. This is something this princess is giving you. Who do you think this princess is, taking back things that have been given out? If you don't want it, this princess will smash it. I'd rather be a jade than let it fall into someone else's hands. Chen Ning said with a gentle expression. Although she did not look at Gu Qingze at all, her words were spoken to Chen Ning's words. Seeing that Gu Qingze had actually given the snow-soaked robe that he had prepared for her to Zhaorong Junju, it would be a lie to say that she wasn't angry. She wasn't made of mud. Even if she was made of mud, she still had a rustic temperament. To think that he had called him master for so long. Humph, such a master, it was better not to have him. Chin Xiao Xiao Chin of Chin. He didn't Xiao Xiao Chin, he Chin of Xiao Xiao of Chin Chin, Chin 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 Chin. Chin of the words. He ti say the chin of Chin Chin Xiao, he of his face. There were ministers who tried to curry favor with him, but he pretended not to hear them and did not even lift his eyelids. Zhaorong Princess and Duke Ning were both quite angered by Chen Ning's actions. Even Duke Ning couldn't help raising his brows and looking at her with an unkind expression. Only he cared about his status, so he couldn't show his anger in front of everyone. Especially in front of Emo Chuan, he could only say a few words of ridicule. Chapter 1377. Chen Ning looked up at him and revealed a faint smile. She is one of this queen's people, so this queen will naturally treat her well. What's wrong with that? For example, your beloved daughter. Didn't the High Duke also love her dearly? No matter what she does wrong, the Duke will always take care of her. Duke Ning was stunned and could not reply. His heart was filled with hate. This stinky girl's mouth is really strong. When the princess heard that Chen Ning was comparing her to Xiao Ru, she was filled with anger and shouted, "What kind of thing is she? She's just a servant. This princess is a noble princess, how could she be compared to her?" Chen Ning did not even look at her. She turned to the servant beside her and said, "Where is the grass the emperor ordered you to cut? Why hasn't it been sent yet? That is the birthday gift the emperor gave to Zhao Rong princess, how could you not take care of it?" As soon as her voice fell, a strange chi-chi sound came from the main hall. The ministers in the hall were filled with joy, but no one dared to laugh out loud, so they could only forcefully hold it in. Xiao Ru let out a ha laugh. She quickly used her hand to cover her mouth as her large eyes rolled around. "Young miss, this servant shouldn't laugh," she said in a low voice. Chen Ning giggled and said, "Laugh when you should, you'll be 10 years younger if you laugh more. You'll become more and more beautiful if you laugh more and more. Don't be like a toad that only knows how to puff. Puff and puff, perhaps your stomach will explode from anger." Zhao Rong princess' stomach was about to explode from anger. Her cheeks kept puffing and her hands were clenched into fists as she glared at Chen Ning. When the ministers saw this, they found that she really did look like an angry toad. Some people couldn't help laughing, but because of Duke Ning's face, they could only bend down and hold their stomachs. They pretended to drop their spoons, chopsticks, and handkerchiefs as they hid under the table to laugh. You little slut." Zhao Rong princess could no longer hold back her anger. She pointed at Chen Ning and was about to curse. "Zhao Rong." Duke Ning gave a sharp shout and stopped her. He calmly said, "The ancient divine doctor gave you the snow silk robe, why aren't you going to wear it? You have this kind of precious treasure and you're still not satisfied. Father, why are you stopping your daughter?" The Zhao Rong princess stared at Chen Ning, wishing her eyes could pierce a hole through the other side's face. The joy she felt from obtaining the snow silk robe had completely disappeared, it had been completely destroyed by Chen Ning. "Be obedient and wear it. Even the Empress doesn't have this kind of treasure, but you can get it. Isn't this a great matter?" Duke Ning looked at his precious daughter with a look of disappointment. If she wanted to find the Empress, there would be many ways. If she wanted the Empress, why would she want the Empress? Wouldn't she just be humiliating herself? This was because he found that Emo Chuan was already very impatient with his daughter. Now that Empress Dowager Zhou wasn't here and there was no one to support his daughter, if she angered the emperor, his daughter wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. At that time, even his father as a duke wouldn't be able to protect her. Hearing this, Zhao Rong's anger immediately turned into joy. She held the snow silk robe and looked at Chen Ning with a proud expression. She was accompanied by a maid to the back hall to change clothes. Chen Ning's eyes flashed slightly. She couldn't help but look at Gu Qingze. There was a bit of resentment in her heart. Chapter 1378. Right now, she was suspecting whether she had acknowledged a fake master. A hand suddenly reached out and grabbed her hand. The palm was warm and strong. It was Emo Chuan. Like he had seen through her thoughts, Emo Chuan revealed a faint smile to her. "Ning, just tell me what you want. Even if it's the stars in the sky, I'll pick them for you. If you like the snow silk robe, I can also give it to you." Although he didn't know what Gu Qingze meant by giving the snow silk robe to Zhao Rong, he didn't want to see that kind of depressed expression on Chen Ning's face. Wasn't it just a snow silk robe? As long as she liked it, he would find a way to give it to her. Chen Ning's heart was filled with warmth. She looked at Emo Chuan and said with a smile, "I don't care about the snow silk robe. You've already given me the most precious treasure in the world and I like it very much and am very satisfied with it. I will keep it safe and keep it by my side forever." The most precious treasure? Emo Chuan was stunned. He thought that although he had spent a lot of effort to decorate the Guan Osprey Palace and had personally chosen everything for her, there wasn't a single thing that could compare to the snow silk robe's value. "What is it?" he asked. Her eyes sparkled and she revealed a smile. "Your heart." His heart to her was the most precious treasure in the world. What snow silk robe compared to Emo Chuan's deep love for her? It was simply too weak. She suddenly felt that she was very happy right now. especially when she saw Mo Chuan's expression towards Zhao Rong. She knew that no matter how much effort Zhao Rong put in, it would all be useless. In Mo Chuan's eyes, there would always be only her. The two of them looked at each other like there was no one else around. It was like everyone else in the hall had turned into the background and there was only the two of them at this moment. When Xiao Tao saw this, she was filled with joy and envy as her lips curled up. Although Duke Ning's expression didn't show any difference, his eyes revealed a strange light. Cousin. Zhao Rong changed into the snow-soaked robe and ran out of the back hall with a happy expression. She saw Mo Chuan and Qin Ning holding hands as they looked at each other and the expression on her face turned ugly. Mo Chuan held Qin Ning's hand and said in a soft voice, "We'll talk after the banquet ends and we return to the palace." He reluctantly let go of her hand. If it wasn't for the sake of Duke Ning's face, he wouldn't have wanted to stay at this boring banquet any longer. "There's no rush, our days are still long." Qin Ning gently smiled at him. Zhao Rong Junju heard the laughter and conversation between the two. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed by a hand. It hurt so much that the muscles on her face twisted. She really was filled with hatred. She didn't hate her cousin but she hated that little bitch. Just because she was a bit pretty, she actually dared to flirt with her cousin in public, seducing him. Humph, Qin Ning, just wait. Zhao Rong, you've changed into the snow-soaked robe? Duke Ning held his daughter's hand and looked her up and down. He found that she was still wearing that beautiful robe and he couldn't help slightly frowning. Chapter 1379. Zhao Rong Princess raised her chin and purposely raised her voice for Qin Ning to hear. Only this kind of child's play could not arouse Qin Ning's jealousy at all. She just revealed a faint smile and said to Mo Chuan, "It's getting late, we can start the banquet." Mo Chuan nodded and clapped his hands. The eunuchs and maids immediately brought out the wine and food. Empress Dowager Zhou wanted to show her favor to Zhao Rong Princess, so she wanted to make this birthday banquet as grand and lively as possible. She spent a lot of effort and prepared all the rare delicacies that were very delicious. Everyone was filled with praise as they ate. She had Su Jin prepare some songs and dances, but Su Jin had returned to the Peaceful Life Palace with Empress Dowager Zhou. Those beautifully dressed singers and dancers were waiting in the side hall, but no one had asked them to perform. In the Peaceful Peace Palace, the ministers were all in high spirits, but only Zhao Rong Princess did not have a happy expression. She was sulking as she sat there. There was an endless stream of people coming to toast Duke Ning and her. Each minister had carefully prepared a gift, but among all of them, Mo Chuan was not there. She did not have the heart to deal with these bearded ministers at all. Her eyes did not leave Mo Chuan at all. But Mo Chuan did not look at her at all. He sat next to Qin Ning and on her table were the dishes he had ordered the royal kitchen to prepare for her. They were all her favorite flavors and he did not even care about the eyes of the people around him as he continued to serve her food. As the two of them ate, they looked at each other and smiled. The tenderness and sweetness between their brows was clearly reflected in their eyes. Zhao Rong Princess' eyes seemed like they were about to spit out flames. Even if a dragon's liver and phoenix's gallbladder were placed in front of her, she wouldn't be able to eat a single bite. Pah! She slammed the jade chopsticks in her hand onto the table and suddenly stood up. Zhao Rong, what are you doing? You can't be rude in this kind of situation, why aren't you sitting down? Although Duke Ning was chatting with the ministers, he was still looking at his daughter from the corner of his eyes. Seeing her staring at Qin Ning with eyes filled with flames, he was afraid she would cause trouble, so he quickly stopped her. Father, your daughter just wants to toast the Emperor and Empress a cup of wine. You old people wouldn't even stop your daughter for this, right? Zhao Rong Princess opened her mouth and revealed a smile. The anger and hatred in her eyes were quickly concealed without a trace. She picked up the wine jug and poured a cup of wine, holding it in her hand. Duke Ning looked at her with a suspicious gaze. You Ning Qing, are you going to toast? Rong King Qing, I Ning Qing, Princess Ning Qing, said. Zhao Rong Qing, Ning, and said, Qing Long, King of King, Qing, King, Father, From the first time she saw Qin Ning, she noticed that the other side was wearing a dress that was as beautiful as a flowing cloud. This was something she had spent a lot of effort to get her hands on. She was planning on wearing it to shock everyone at the banquet, but in order to achieve her goal, she had to reluctantly give it up. She had a spy in Guan Osprey Palace to put it in Qin Ning's suitcase. Chapter 1380. The bag that the thousand-faced young master gave her had two kinds of powders, one was thorn mustard grass and the other was cat mint. There was even a detailed description of the uses of the two powders. As long as the two powders were mixed together, there would be a strange reaction that would release a special smell. This smell could not be felt by normal people, but it had a very strong effect. It was enough to make a cat go crazy after smelling it. Cats had a very sensitive sense of smell, so the amount of powder in these two small bags was enough to make all the cats within 10 miles rush over. At that time, the scene would be very interesting, very interesting. After you finish the toast, immediately come back, do you hear me? Duke Ning was not assured, so he once again warned his daughter. Zhao Rong Princess nodded with a smile. She had already secretly taken out the thorn mustard grass powder from her chest and hid it in her pinky. She picked up the wine cup and her skirt swayed as she walked over to Emo Chuan and Chen Ning. She stopped in front of Emo Chuan. Cousin, we haven't seen each other in 3 years, and after you saw you didn't welcome Rong at all. You really made Rong sad. Today is Rong birthday and you're not even going to say a word of congratulations to Rong? She softly said. Her voice was filled with resentment and her eyes were filled with grievance, making her look very delicate and pitiful. Although Chen Ning did not pay attention to her, she looked over from the corner of her eyes. Seeing her little white flower appearance, she couldn't help shaking her head. Her acting was too bad. If it was in the modern era, she wouldn't even be able to get a small role. With this kind of acting, did she want to trick Emo Chuan? The coldness in Emo Chuan's eyes was even colder than a glacier. He was already extremely impatient with the Zhao Rong princess. Zhao Rong, seeing that we grew up together, this one will give you a present today. Really? The Zhao Rong princess was surprised and happy. Her eyes quickly lit up. I'll give you 4 words, take care of yourself. Emo Chuan said word for word. Cousin. The light in the Zhao Rong princess' eyes dimmed. She bit her lips and swallowed the tears that were already in her eyes back down. I know I've done many wrong things, I'll change in the future. I won't let you hate me. If you can do what you say, then you will still be this one's cousin. Otherwise, I won't even leave this last bit of affection. Emo Chuan's words were cold and emotionless, filling the Zhao Rong princess' heart with extreme hate. However, the person she hated was not Emo Chuan, but rather Chen Ning. She lowered her eyes to hide the hatred in her eyes. She pouted and said, Rong knows. Cousin, Rong knows that I did wrong before, so I specially came to apologize to the Empress. Rong is young and has offended you. I hope that you can forgive Rong Queen. When Zhao Rong princess raised her head, she had a smile on her face. She looked at Chen Ning with an apologetic expression. If the Empress is willing to forgive Rong then drink this cup of wine from Rong She was only a step away from Chen Ning and could already smell the faint scent of catnip coming from Chen Ning's body. Her eyes couldn't help flashing a look of success. Chen Ning revealed a faint smile and slowly raised her wine cup. The princess is too polite. Let's forget about the past, this princess will not take it to heart. That's great. This cup of wine is for the Empress. I'll drink it first. Chapter 1381. Chen Ning brought the wine cup to her lips with a faint smile. Suddenly Zhao Rong princess called out, Io? She held her forehead and her body swayed. She couldn't stand still and fell over towards Chen Ning. Chen Ning reached out to support her and Zhao Rong stabilized herself. She said in an apologetic voice, Empress, Rong drank too much and almost fell over. It was a good thing that the Empress helped me. She waved her long sleeve and the pinky of her right hand that was hidden in her sleeve flicked out. The powder in her fingernail fell into Chen Ning's wine cup without anyone noticing. Even Emo Chuan did not notice her small movements. Chen Ning said with a smile, the princess has a low tolerance for alcohol, so it's best if you drink less of this wine in the future. Although she did not see what Zhao Rong princess had done, she didn't need to think to know that the other side had drugged her wine cup. Zhao Rong princess patted her chest and revealed an innocent look. The Empress' teachings are correct. Whatever the Empress says in the future, Rong will listen to it. She saw that Chen Ning was holding the wine cup, not drinking it. Her heart couldn't help feeling anxious as she pouted. The Empress is not drinking Rong wine. Could it be that you are not willing to forgive Rong previous actions? Or is the Empress suspecting that Rong has done something to the wine? If the Empress doesn't believe Rong is willing to personally test the wine for the Empress. She picked up the wine jug on Chen Ning's table and began to drink it. After a few mouthfuls, her cheeks turned into peach blossoms, turning into a bright red. Empress, do you still not believe in Rong sincerity? Her eyes were filled with tears, looking very pitiful. Chen Ning saw her performance and thought that she was really clumsy. She didn't even say that she suspected the wine was poisoned, but she couldn't hold herself back and said it. She raised the cup with a faint smile and slowly drank the wine. Then she showed the empty cup to Zhao Rong Princess. "I will accept your highness's kind intentions," she said with a double meaning. Zhao Rong Princess saw that she had drunk the mustard powder wine and a large stone in her heart fell to the ground. She revealed a smile on her face and thought that before long, there would be a good show to watch. She revealed a proud smile and pricked up her ears to listen. She wanted to hear the cute meows of the cats. Not long after, all the cats in a 10-mile radius would be attracted by the smell and they would charge at Chen Ning like crazy. Those sharp cat claws would tear her clothes to pieces and her pretty little face would no longer exist in the future. Humph, even the royal cousin wouldn't be able to save you. Zhao Rong Junju was feeling pleased with herself when she suddenly felt an itch on her back. She thought nothing of it. Vaguely, she seemed to hear the meowing of a cat, but when she listened carefully she couldn't hear it. What was going on? Why hadn't Kitty appeared yet? For today's feast, in order to successfully complete the plan, she had specially sent people to capture stray cats all over the city. She had caught hundreds of them and placed them near the imperial city. Calculating the time, these cats should have smelled the scent and rushed into the imperial palace. "Princess, your face is very red. Is it because you're drunk? Why don't you go back and rest? Xiaoru, quickly give the princess some hangover soup." Chen Ning gave this order to Xiaoru with a faint smile. She did not ignore the anxiety that flashed in Zhao Rong Princess' eyes. The cat mint had already been diluted by her peppermint powder, so it didn't matter if she drank the mustard powder. Chapter 1382. By the way, Your Highness, it's your birthday today. I've specially prepared a gift for you. This small gift is not as precious as the snow silk robe of the ancient divine doctor, but it's something that girls like. Open it and take a look. Do you like it? Chen Ning smiled as she took out a delicate box and placed it in the princess' hands. This little fox spirit had actually prepared a gift for her? The princess looked up at Chen Ning in disbelief. Chen Ning had a smile on her face and there was nothing strange about her expression. She was secretly on guard as she carefully opened the box. She was prepared for a sharp hidden weapon to come out of the box at any time. Who knew that when she opened the lid of the box, nothing would happen? Inside the box was a transparent glass bottle. It was filled with yellow incense. When the lid was opened, the sweet and fragrant smell filled Zhao Rong Juanju's nose. Yeah, this fragrance is really nice. There was no girl who didn't like the fragrance of makeup. Especially seeing this clear bottle of fragrance, the princess couldn't help her eyes lighting up as she couldn't help praising it. This fragrance is called honey fragrance. It is very rare. It's good that the princess likes it, then this princess gift was not for nothing. Chen Ning said with a smile. Many thanks, Empress. The princess happily put away the box and returned to her seat. She had a gloating expression on her face as she waited for the show to begin. She played with the honey fragrance in her hand while laughing at Chen Ning in her heart. She really was a fool. I've only said a few soft words and she's already deceived to the point that she's confused. She didn't even hesitate to give me such a precious spice. It seems that she's not a powerful character. I've really thought too highly of her. If I knew that she's so stupid, why would I need to spend so much money to find the Purple Heaven Pavilion? With my own methods, isn't it a piece of cake to deal with this idiot? She suddenly saw Chen Ning looking at her and she quickly revealed an innocent and grateful smile. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. In the eyes of everyone in the hall, the two of them seemed to have buried the hatchet between them, but no one knew about the turbulent undercurrents between them. The honey fragrance that Chen Ning gave to Zhao Rong was the one that Chen Baiyun had given her on the lake that day. It was the one that wanted to harm her. Chen Baiyun's mind was clever and vicious. She first put a kind of medicine in the wine and wanted Chen Ning to drink it. The medicine in the wine would make the honey fragrance 10 times stronger, and this was what bees liked the most. She wanted the bees to sting Chen Ning's head and make her look bad, but Chen Ning saw through it. She switched their wine cups and the one who was stung was Chen Baiyun instead. Chen Baiyun didn't know what to do. She swapped their cups and the one who was stung was Chen Baiyun. The so-called not returning the favor was impolite. The Zhao Rong princess had set this trap for her, so if she didn't return the favor she wouldn't be Chen Ning. The Inqing Palace was transparent on all sides. Outside the main hall, hundreds of flowers bloomed, butterflies flew, and bees danced. There were many bees that came to collect honey. She had already ordered Xiao Ru to put the honey perfume in the hangover soup. As long as Zhao Rongjunju drank the hangover soup, the bees would quickly swarm over and give her their most intimate and passionate greetings. Your Highness, the hangover soup is here. Xiao Ru placed the hangover soup in front of Zhao Rong Princess' table. Without saying another word, she turned around and left. Chapter 1383. Humph, you stinky girl who doesn't understand etiquette. You're just like your master. Zhao Rong Princess stared at Xiao Ru's back and silently cursed. She slowly picked up the bowl of soup and was about to bring it to her lips when she suddenly remembered that this soup was brought by that stinky girl. Who knew if it had been tampered with like her, so it was better not to drink it. She placed the soup to the side and did not touch it. It had already been a while, why hadn't the cat appeared yet? Zhao Rong Princess waited and waited, but she still did not hear the cat's meow that she was waiting for. She began to feel a bit restless. Her back but felt like there was a layer of insects crawling on them, making them feel very itchy. Especially her back, it was very itchy. She wanted to reach out and scratch it, but in front of all the ministers and everyone watching, a dignified princess like her scratching an itch in front of everyone would be too indecent. She forcefully endured it and took another sip of wine. She thought that drinking cold wine would make her feel better, but who would have thought that after drinking the wine, the itch would become even more intense. Zhao Rong Princess felt very uncomfortable from the itch, so she couldn't help shrugging her shoulders. The material of the snow silk robe was thin, soft, and smooth. It was more comfortable than all the clothes she had worn in her life, so she didn't even think about it before wearing it. When the smooth and soft material stuck to her body, it was very comfortable, but now she wasn't so comfortable. Her skin that was touched by the material began to itch. It was like there were countless furry insects crawling all over her body. From her chest to her back, from her lower abdomen to her arms, they were crawling all over her body. Especially her back, it was a very painful itch. Zhao Rong Princess could not hold it in anymore. She raised her arm to scratch her back, but she could not reach the spot on her back. Zhao Rong, what are you doing? Sit properly for me. Duke Ning's eyes swept over. Seeing Zhao Rong's scratching posture, he knit his brows and scolded her. He was surrounded by ministers trying to curry favor with him. If Zhao Rong's appearance fell into everyone's eyes, it would be a great loss of face. Father, my back is very itchy. Quickly help me scratch it. Zhao Rong Princess did not care about the strange gazes of the people around her. After she scratched a few times, she could no longer stop. Duke Ning's face sunk as he angrily said, "What a scandal! Zhao Rong, did you drink too much wine? Drink some soup to sober up." He saw his daughter squirming on the chair and shaking her body. Her appearance was as ugly as it could be. Especially when he saw that the ministers who were drinking at the surrounding tables were starting to notice his daughter, he only felt his face heat up. "Hey, come and help me scratch this itch. Here, up again." "Yes, here." Zhao Rongjunju scratched her back a few times and then started to scratch her arms. She still didn't feel satisfied, so she ordered the palace maids beside her to have 2 or 3 palace maids scratch her together. However, the more she scratched, the more itchy it became. It was as if those little caterpillars had scratched her heart, making her heart itch along with them. "So itchy. Scratch harder, a little harder. Yes, comfortable, so comfortable, teat I." Zhao Rongjunju tore at the clothes on her body. Her 2 long sleeves were torn, revealing a pair of snow-white and tender arms. They didn't look strange, but she felt an itch from her skin to her bones. "Yaoti, what on earth are you doing? Have you gone mad?" Chapter 1384. Zhao Rong Princess did not hear her father's words at all. She stretched out her long fingernails and forcefully scratched her skin, leaving behind blood-red marks on her snow-white skin. But she did not feel any pain at all, rather she felt very comfortable. "Someone come, the princess has drunk too much. Quickly help the princess sober up." Although State Duke Ning knew that Zhao Rong wasn't drunk, he was deliberately pointing at a deer as a horse, making everyone think that his daughter was drunk so as to cover up his daughter's inexplicable actions. 2 palace maids rushed forward to support Zhao Rongjunju. "Princess, let's go rest in the back hall." Zhao Rong's eyes turned red. With a flip of her hand, she slapped the 2 maids to the ground and said in a sharp voice, "Scram, you useless servants. This princess is very itchy, can't you see it?" After she hit the 2 maids, she felt her body itch even more. So she used her back to hit the sharp corner of the table, scaring everyone. "Comfortable, it's really comfortable." Zhao Rong Princess gave a comfortable sigh. She used all the itchy parts of her body to hit the corner of the table, creating a dong-dong sound. All the ministers in the hall put down the cups and chopsticks in their hands. Their eyes widened as they stared at her without blinking, their faces filled with incomparable shock. Everyone was thinking in their hearts, how is this Zhao Rong princess drunk? She's clearly gone crazy. Duke Ning's face flushed red. No matter how hard he thought, he couldn't figure out what was wrong with Zhao Rong. But when he saw his daughter in such a state, he was anxious and heartbroken. He rushed over to hug Zhao Rong and shouted, Rong, you're not allowed to mess around anymore. Zhao Rong princess suddenly went crazy. Not only did all the ministers in the hall stare at her, not knowing what was going on, even Mo Chuan and Chen Ning had looks of disbelief on their faces. Xiao Ru felt very satisfied. Seeing Zhao Rong princess go crazy, she clenched her small fists and thought, evil will have evil. You want to harm my family's young miss? Now you've received your retribution. Chen Ning's eyes sparkled and a thought appeared in her mind. She subconsciously looked over at Gu Qingze. She was thinking, Zhao Rong princess becoming like this, could it be related to the snow silk robe that master gave her? If it really was as she thought, then she really had wronged master. Gu Qingze was the only person in the hall that was not affected by Zhao Rong princess. He swept away all the delicacies on the table and drank a stomach full of fruit juice. He leisurely leaned back in his chair and let out a burp. He closed his eyes and rested, completely ignoring Zhao Rong princess's ugly behavior. Zhao Rong princess was being hugged by Duke Ning and could not scratch. Her eyes turned red and she bit down on Duke Ning's arm without a word. Ah. Zhao Rong princess was being held by Duke Ning and she could not scratch. Zhao Rong Junju acted as if she had gone crazy, her mouth emitting a hoo-hoo sound. She grabbed the eunuch beside her and panted, hit me, hit me. Zhao Rong princess Zhao not. That eunuch was scared silly, he blankly stared at her. She was a noble and jade leaf, he was just a lowly servant. Even if he had the guts as big as the sky, he wouldn't dare to hit the Junjun Yang. If you don't hit me, I'll strangle you. I'll strangle you. Chapter 1385. Zhao Rong. Have you gone crazy? Duke Ning was flustered and exasperated. He heavily slapped Zhao Rong region princess' right cheek, leaving a deep red handprint on her pink and white face. Ah, this is too comfortable. Zhao Rong region princess let out a satisfied sound. She released the hands that were strangling the eunuch and tightly grabbed onto Duke Ning's sleeve. The eunuch had just escaped death and was scared out of his wits. He fell to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. Dad hit me. Hit me harder. The harder the better. Rong, are you? What's wrong with you? Duke Ning felt a pain in his heart as he looked at his crazy daughter. He couldn't understand why his daughter would suddenly go crazy. He suddenly thought of something and forcefully grabbed Zhao Rong region princess with both hands, dragging her in front of Gu Qingze. Dr. Gu, quickly help Zhao Rong take a look at what illness she has. How did she suddenly become like this? Zhao Rong region princess kept saying that it was unbearably itchy, but when everyone saw her exposed skin, it was very normal. It wasn't red or swollen. This meant that there were only two possibilities. Either she had a strange illness or she really had gone crazy. No matter which one it was a fact that Duke Ning found hard to accept. Gu Qingze slowly opened his eyes and lazily looked at Zhao Rong princess. Then he nodded his head. That's right, princess has indeed contracted an illness, a very strange illness. What disease is it? Duke Ning hurriedly asked. This disease is called variegated dermatitis, also known as psoriasis. Variegated dermatitis? Psoriasis? What kind of disease is this? I've never heard of it. Duke Ning furrowed his brows. This is a very rare skin disease. People who have this disease will often have a sudden flare. When it flares up, it will be exactly like what the princess is experiencing right now. Right now, the princess only feels itchy, but her skin is normal. When it flares up, red pimples will appear on her skin and it will gradually expand into brownish red patches. If it is not treated, these red patches will grow gray scales like skin flakes and then the skin will fall off in large amounts. Finally, her entire body will rot and she will die. That's right, this disease is very contagious. It's best if you don't get close to her, or else if her fingers scratch your skin, you will also catch this disease. As Gu Qingze spoke, Duke Ning's eyes widened. After hearing this, his entire body started to tremble. The court officials all retreated in fear. In the blink of an eye, a large empty space appeared next to Duke Ning and Zhao Rong region princess. This is too frightening. There is such a scary disease in this world. Tsk Zhao Rong region princess is really pitiful. She was just celebrating her birthday, but now she has a skin rash. Zhao Rong region princess is really pitiful. She was just celebrating her birthday but she got variegated dermatitis. The court officials whispered to each other, their faces filled with fear. They looked at Zhao Rong region princess and Duke Ning as if they were looking at leprosy patients. Clearly in their eyes Duke Ning, who was hugging Zhao Rong region princess, was the same as Zhao Rong region princess, infected with this terrifying variegated dermatitis. Both of Duke Ning's arms were trembling. It was clear that he was afraid, but he still tightly hugged Zhao Rong region princess and did not let go. Chapter 1386. Gu Qingze thought about it. This disease is very rare. Normally, heredity is the biggest reason for this disease. It's usually that the parents have this disease and the children will inherit it. Sometimes it will be hidden in the body for years, but it will break out sooner or later. Duke Ning's face turned even paler. Heredity? The divine doctor's meaning is that Zhao Rong, she inherited this disease from this duke? Gu Qingze softly said, I'm only saying that this is the biggest possibility. As for the reason, Sir Duke should know it better than this commoner. Duke Ning did not say anything. He lowered his head and his eyes sparkled. It was unknown what he was thinking. After a while, he suddenly looked up. Divine Dr. Gu, your medical skills are this high, you must have a way to cure this disease, right? He looked at Gu Qingze with eyes filled with hope, just like a drowning person seeing a piece of driftwood in front of them. Father, hit me, quickly hit me. My daughter is itching to death, it's so uncomfortable, it's so uncomfortable. Zhao Rong princess suddenly began to cry out. She desperately struggled in Duke Ning's hands, wanting to break free and scratch the itch, but Duke Ning's hands used strength and tightly gripped her wrist, not letting her move. Divine Dr. Gu, I beg you, you have to save my daughter. As long as you can cure her disease, no matter what you want, this duke will agree to it. Duke Ning was in a hurry. He did not care about his status and actually begged Gu Qingze. Gu Qingze pondered it and said, although this lentigo is strong, it is not hard to cure. I do know a recipe that is very effective in curing this disease. Hearing this, Duke Ning was filled with joy and was filled with excitement. Divine Doctor, quickly tell me, what recipe is it? This method is a bit strange. Even if I say it, I'm afraid Duke Ning will not let the princess use this method to cure her. Divine Doctor, no matter what method it is, as long as it can cure Zhao Rong's disease, this duke will not have any objections. Quickly tell this Duke Rong or she's in this kind of pain. As her father, my heart really hurts seeing this. Duke Ning looked at Zhao Rong princess with slightly red eyes. This was the love between a father and daughter, revealing their true feelings without a single bit of pretense. Chen Ning couldn't help thinking, in this world, no matter how evil a person is, there will always be someone they love and care for. But seeing Zhao Rong princess in this miserable state, she did not feel any sympathy. If she had not seen through Zhao Rong princess's trap, then her situation would be 10 times worse than Zhao Rong's. Gu Qingze hesitantly said, Sir Duke, it isn't this commoner not willing to reveal this recipe, but this recipe is a bit. Duke Ning panicked and said, Godly doctor, saving a life is more important. Whether it's elegant or not isn't important. I only have one daughter, Zhao Rong. I can't let anything happen to her. I beg Godly Doctor to show mercy and save her. His knees, he wanted to kneel to Duke. And Gu. This commoner can't accept Lord High Duke's bow. Gu Qingze turned his wheelchair and avoided kneeling. His expression was a little strange and a complicated look flashed across his eyes. He said faintly, High Duke's love for your daughter is really touching. All right, since High Duke doesn't care, then I will tell High Duke about this strange folk recipe. Chapter 1387. Everyone looked in the direction of his finger and saw a locust tree next to the flower garden outside the hall. The tree trunk was thick enough for 2 people to wrap their arms around it. It gave a shade and was covered in green leaves. Duke Ning nodded, but he did not understand Gu Qingze's meaning at all. Gu Qingze said, as long as the princess rubs against the locust tree, the itch on her body will disappear. What? When Duke Ning heard this, he almost flew into a rage. His eyes popped out as he angrily glared at Gu Qingze. Divine Dr. Gu, I've wholeheartedly asked you to cure me, you shouldn't use this kind of method to tease me. Are you trying to humiliate me in my Ronger? He raised his eyebrows and revealed a fierce look. The ministers all knew why he was this angry. It was because he wanted the young girl Zhao Rong, the dignified princess, to rub against the locust tree in broad daylight in front of everyone's eyes. If this matter was spread out, not only would the princess lose face, even her father Duke Ning would lose face. This matter would become the laughingstock of the capital city's citizens, and it could even be spread to the entire West Chu country. Then Duke Ning and the Princess Zhao Rong would become a joke. Gu Qingze, however, calmly said, "Does the High Duke think that this commoner is teasing you? You might not know this, but this 100-year-old locust tree has a type of extremely tiny thorns on its trunk. These thorns will secrete a special juice, and this juice happens to be the nemesis of psoriasis. If Her Highness's condition does not improve after rubbing against it, Lord High Duke can arrest this commoner and punish him. This commoner's head is right here, waiting for Lord High Duke to behead him at any time." He raised his head and looked straight at Duke Ning. There was no fear in his eyes at all. Duke Ning couldn't help hesitating. Looking at Gu Qingze's expression, it didn't seem like he was teasing him. What if what he said was true? Could this locust tree really cure Rong-er's illness? If it really was cured, of course it would be a happy ending, but if it couldn't be cured, Rong-er's reputation would be completely ruined. He thought about it, but he couldn't make up his mind. Although the Princess Zhao Rong almost fainted from the itch, her mind was still clear. She heard that rubbing against the locust tree could cure the itch, so she struggled to break free from Duke Ning's grasp. She charged into the large locust tree in the yard and began to rub against it without a word. When everyone saw this, they were all shocked. Their mouths were wide enough to fit an egg. Xiao Ru endured it again and again to not let herself laugh, but her heart was filled with joy. Chen Ning's lips slightly curled as she looked down, covering the smile in her eyes. At this point she finally understood what was going on. She had really misunderstood her master. The reason why Gu Qingze came to the palace this time was obviously to help her disciple vent her anger and seek justice. Compared to her master's tricks, her heart. Gu Ning's master's words. Ning's voice. Long and long, to him. Compared to his master's black-bellied tricks, his own tricks were simply not worth mentioning. Chapter 1388. When Qin Ning thought of Gu Qingze's serious expression, she wanted to laugh. He really was lying through his teeth, but he had fooled everyone and no one doubted his words. Since her master had spent so much effort to arrange this good show for her, of course she couldn't disappoint her master's good intentions. She tried her best to maintain a serious expression, but there was a faint smile in her eyes. Out of everyone present, only Mo Chuan understood her the most. Seeing her slightly narrowed eyes, he thought about it for a bit and guessed the truth. He couldn't help feeling angry and finding it funny as he forcefully glared at Gu Qingze. Humph, this surname Gu, he actually wanted to use this kind of evil method to embarrass Zhao Rong and take revenge for Ning. If he wasn't trying to please her, then what was he trying to do? But thinking of Zhao Rong's evil deeds and seeing her current appearance, he couldn't help feeling happy in his heart. He couldn't help admiring Gu Qingze's clever method, taking revenge for him and Ning. Why doesn't it itch? I'm still itchy. Divine Dr. Gu, didn't you say that as long as I rubbed against the black locust tree I wouldn't itch? But why is it getting itchier the more I rub against it? Zhao Rong rubbed against it, but not only did the itch not lessen, it became even worse. It was like there was a hand scratching her heart, but she couldn't scratch the itch. Duke Ning's face sunk and his cold and sharp eyes looked over at Gu Qingze. Without waiting for him to speak, Gu Qingze calmly said, "Princess, you need to take off the snow silk robe before rubbing against it. Only then will it be effective." So it's like this. I'll take it off immediately. Zhao Rong impatiently began to tear off her clothes. Rong, you can't. Duke Ning quickly ordered the maids to bring her to the back hall and take off the snow silk robe for her. Zhao Rong put on her clothes and quickly ran back. She hugged the locust tree and began rubbing against it. Comfortable, it's too comfortable. Zhao Rong rubbed against it a few times and her face revealed an ecstatic expression. Wherever she rubbed against it really wasn't itchy anymore. She looked at the locust tree with excitement, like she was looking at the most precious treasure in the world. She threw herself at it and kept rubbing against it. The ministers in the hall looked at each other in blank dismay, revealing looks of disbelief. Interesting, this was just too interesting. This kind of situation, it was a once-in-a-hundred-years scene. The incomparably noble Zhao Rong Junju was actually hugging an old locust tree as if she was hugging her beloved big brother, rubbing against it. That posture, that expression. Ha, this could be made into a story and the storyteller could tell everyone. Everyone was beaming with joy as they watched. However, someone turned around and saw Duke Ning's face that was darker than the bottom of a pot. His heart skipped a beat and he thought to himself, not good. If they laughed at Zhao Rong, it would be Zhao Ning, Duke Ning they would be. to do to Qing. Therefore, everyone could only hold back their laughter and put on a serious expression. However, they were already overjoyed in their stomachs. Although none of the ministers smiled or said a word of mockery, Duke Ning still felt his face turn red. Seeing his daughter make a fool of herself in front of everyone, he wished he could find a hole to hide in and hide. Chapter 1389. When Duke Ning heard her snort, he couldn't find a place to hide his face. He had never experienced such a shameful moment in his life. He had personally seen his beloved daughter hugging a tree and rubbing herself against it like an animal, but he couldn't stop it, he couldn't do anything about it. He really wanted to shout and scold Zhao Rong. He really wanted to grab Zhao Rong and beat her up. He really wanted to kill every single one of the people who were here to watch the show. But there was nothing he could do. His hands were clenched into fists and his knuckles were cracking. He had even clenched his teeth so hard that he almost shattered his teeth. Only then did he resist the urge to kill. Seeing this, he couldn't stay any longer. He could only wave his sleeves and use the excuse of urinating to escape. Zhao Rong Princess felt an itch from her heart and from her bones like a tide, coming out in waves. It was so itchy that her hair was about to stand up, but it was strange. Once she rubbed against the old locust tree's rough and thorny trunk, the itch disappeared and was replaced with a comfortable feeling. This comfortable feeling made her turn a blind eye to everything around her, as if she couldn't hear it at all. Those mocking, malicious, disdainful gazes and discussions, she couldn't see or hear them at all. She just wholeheartedly rubbed against the old locust tree, revealing an infatuated smile on her face. At this moment, even Mo Chuan lost his weight in her heart. There was nothing she loved more than this old locust tree in front of her. Ai, how much longer do you think the princess is going to rub against it? I don't know. Seeing the princess' infatuated appearance, it seems like she doesn't want to leave this tree at all. I never thought that we would be able to open our eyes today and see this kind of good show. Shush. Do you not want to live anymore? What are you afraid of? The Duke isn't here. When Duke Ning left, the ministers couldn't help gathering in groups of 2s and 3s, whispering to each other. Everyone didn't notice that Duke Ning had suddenly appeared in the corner of the hall and was silently watching this scene. He also heard every single word of everyone's whispers. His face was as calm as water and he didn't say a word. His right hand tightly clenched and suddenly, with a "pa" sound, a round thing fell to the ground. It was half a jade ring. He had been wearing this jade ring for 20 years and it had never left his body. But today, in a fit of anger, he had forcefully broken it into 2 halves. However, Duke Ning didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache because his heart was already filled with anger and resentment. Just before today's banquet, he was still brimming with confidence and ambition when he reappeared in front of the courtiers, ready to make a comeback and show off his skills. But in the blink of an eye, he was ruthlessly slapped in the face in front of all the ministers in the court. What made him feel the most was that he did not know who had slapped his face. Who was the one that made him lose face? He only knew that his face was so hot that it was enough to cook a pancake. Gu Qingze? No. Ning. Zhao Rong had clearly warned him that this method of treatment was extremely indecent. It was Zhao Rong who was too disappointing. She had completely disregarded her status as a princess and made such an ugly move in front of everyone. Should he blame his daughter? No. Chapter 1390. At the end of the day, the person he should blame the most was himself. If it wasn't for him, Zhao Rong wouldn't have contracted such a strange disease, wouldn't have made such a fool of himself. But who could he blame? Duke Ning knew that this matter wouldn't take long. It would quickly spread throughout the entire capital. At that time, Zhao Rong Princess would not only lose her own face, but also his, Duke Ning's face. And the dignified and honorable image that he had maintained in front of everyone for so many years would be destroyed in a single day. In the future, how would he have the face to appear in front of the officials? How would he have the face to raise his head in front of everyone? He really hated. After an unknown amount of time, Zhao Rong Princess was finally tired from rubbing. She was completely exhausted. Panting, she hugged the old locust tree and collapsed into a ball. She let out a long sigh of relief in her heart. That damned, tormenting itch had finally disappeared. Zhao Rong Princess slowly opened her eyes and then her eyes widened. What was going on? Why was there so many people gathered around her? They were all nobles and officials, and all of them were looking at her like they were watching a play. I'm not rubbing anymore. Yeah, I haven't had my fill yet. What a pity. Whispers of discussion came from the crowd. Zhao Rong Princess was dumbfounded. After a while, she realized that she was hugging an old locust tree and her face was tightly pressed against the trunk. What had she just done? The scene that had just happened suddenly replayed in her mind. Her face instantly turned red. Then she covered her face with her hands and let out a scream. It was too embarrassing. Under the gaze of so many eyes, she hugged the old locust tree without any fear and shamelessly rubbed against it, up and down. The scariest thing was that she seemed to be grunting like a pig. Zhao Rong Princess was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to do. She wanted to bang her head against the old locust tree and die. Rong let's go. Come back to the Fu with your father. Duke Ning pushed through the crowd and walked in front of Zhao Rong Princess with a dark face. He grabbed her hand. Today both father and daughter had lost all face. He didn't have the face to stay in the palace a moment longer. He just wanted to quickly send this daughter who had made him lose face back to the Fu and never let her show her face again. Zhao Rong Junju stumbled as she was pulled along by her father. She suddenly realized that she had made a fool of herself today. In the future she would no longer have the face to see anyone. Her father had dragged her back to the manor. He was determined to lock her up for the rest of her life. From now on she would never be able to see her cousin, the emperor. Her heart felt like it had been stabbed by a knife. It hurt so much that tears flowed out of her eyes. No. My daughter is not leaving. Today is the birthday banquet specially held by the Empress Dowager for this daughter. This daughter is not going back to the mansion. She struggled and broke free from Duke Ning's grasp. She didn't even think as she charged at Mo Chuan and fell in front of him. Tears flowed down as she sobbed. Cousin, you have to help Rong. Someone is trying to harm Rong. Someone is trying to harm me on purpose, that's why Rong. What happened just now, Rong, doesn't know anything. Cousin, you have to believe Rong. Yes, it must be her. It must be her who harmed me. Zhao Rong Princess suddenly raised her hand. Her face turned fierce and her eyes turned sharp as she pointed at Xiao Ru beside Qin Ning. Chapter 1391. The Zhao Rong Princess knew that she had made a fool of herself today. If she was brought back to the palace by her father, she would never be able to raise her head again and her reputation would be ruined. She did not believe that she had some strange disease for no reason at all. What psoriasis, she had never heard of them before. In the 3 years she had been practicing martial arts with her master, her body had been very healthy. She had not even had a cold or cough. So the only way she could save herself now was to find the person who had framed her and wash away the shame on her. The first person she thought of was Qin Ning, but from beginning to end Qin Ning had not come close to her at all, not even a finger had touched her. Putting aside Qin Ning's suspicions, the next most likely person was Xiao Ru. It was Xiao Ru who had brought over a cup of hangover soup. Although she did not drink the soup, she had touched it with her hand. Perhaps it was that girl who had smeared some medicine on the side of the bowl and did something to it. It had to be like this. No wonder when she put down the bowl, her body began to itch. It had to be Xiao Ru. There was another possibility. The problem was the honey perfume that Qin Ning had given her. But whether it was the honey perfume or the hangover soup, it was all a trick played by the master and servant. The more the Zhao Rong Princess thought about it, the more hatred she felt. She glared at Qin Ning from the corner of her eyes. But she was smarter this time. She knew that if she pointed the spearhead at Qin Ning, her cousin would not stand up for her, so she grabbed onto Xiao Ru. No matter how much her royal cousin liked that woman, he would not stand up for a servant. As long as she could prove that she had been framed by that servant Xiao Ru, she would be able to restore her clean reputation. She would also be able to pull that little fox off the throne of the Empress. The Zhao Rong Princess made her plan in her heart. She suddenly grabbed Xiao Ru's wrist and pulled her to her side, staring right into her eyes. It wasn't you? If it wasn't you, then why are you panicking? Why are you so nervous? Why are you trembling? You're still saying that it wasn't you? You clearly have a guilty conscience. Quickly tell me, what did you do to that bowl of sour plum soup? Xiao Ru panicked. She used all her strength, wanting to break free from the Zhao Rong Princess grip. However, the Zhao Rong Princess had practiced martial arts for 3 years and her grip was very strong. She could not break free at all. It wasn't me, it really wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Really, I didn't do anything. Her heart was filled with panic. Her tongue was tied and she was even stuttering. She had never lied since she was young. This was the first time in her life. This was the first time in a lie. This was because she had indeed put some powder in the soup. Now that she was being questioned by the Zhao Rong Princess, her heart was filled with guilt and she couldn't help looking over at Qin Ning. Xiao Ru. Zhao the princess was even more. Xiao 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 xiao. Ru. Xiao 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 Qinling xiao shouted to her to xiao, xie xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. Xiao xiao ru. Xiao 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 ru xiao 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 and she and who she xiao xiao no. Chapter 1392. This sudden turn of events was completely out of everyone's expectations. Mo Chuan and the ministers all looked at Xiao Ru. Seeing her panicked expression and her fearless face, they began to have doubts in their hearts. Could this matter really be related to Xiao Ru? Duke Ning's face was as dark as ink. If he didn't care about his status, he would have already grabbed Xiao Ru's throat and personally interrogated her. His hazy eyes looked over Qin Ning's face and his heart was filled with a deep hatred. It's her. It must have been her who ordered her servant to do this. It was her who made his daughter embarrass herself in front of the ministers. It was her who gave him a fierce slap in front of everyone's faces. Very good, he would remember this. If he didn't take revenge for this, he wouldn't be a person. Qin Ning did not ignore Duke Ning's lowered brows and the hatred in his eyes. It seemed like he was putting this black pot on her head. She curled her lips and couldn't help rolling her eyes at Gu Qingze. She thought, "Master, your disciple is taking the blame for you." However, she was too lazy to explain and didn't care at all. They could think whatever Duke Ning and his daughter wanted to think. If they wanted to put the blame on her, that was no problem. Even if this situation didn't happen, Zhao Rong Princess's current situation wouldn't be any better. She would let those little bees come to stab her until even her father, Duke Ning, couldn't recognize her. Only she could tolerate them putting the blame on her head, but she could not tolerate them bullying Xiao Ru. Stop. Who dares to make a move? The guards raised their palms, preparing to slap Xiao Ru's mouth. Qin Ning's cold voice rang out and everyone immediately stopped looking at her. You need to look at the owner before hitting a dog. She is this queen's personal maid and you want to hit her, but have you asked this queen's opinion? Just because you say she did it, does it mean she did it? What proof do you have? Qin Ning slowly stood up from her seat. Her expression was very serious and there was not a single trace of a smile on her face. Her cold eyes swept over the faces of the guards and they couldn't help feeling a bit panicked. She walked over to Xiao Ru, not even looking at the guards as she coldly said, "Let her go." The guards loosened their hands like they had been bewitched. "Young miss." Xiao Ru immediately kneeled down at Qin Ning's feet and began to sob. "Stand up for this queen, you're not allowed to cry. If you cry, others will think that you have a guilty conscience and think that you have done something wrong to the princess. Stand up straight for this princess and wipe your tears. Loudly tell the princess and everyone that there is no problem with this soup." Qin Ning raised her voice and spoke in a loud and clear voice. Her words filled Xiao Ru with courage. She wiped her tears and stood up from the ground, straightening her back. "Your Highness's matter has nothing to do with this servant. The hangover soup was clean and there was nothing in it. Furthermore, your Highness didn't drink a single mouthful. Why are you saying that this servant harmed your Highness? This servant is not convinced," she said loudly. That girl Xiao Ru was becoming more and more mature. She could actually grasp logic and refute it. Chapter 1393. This was because she was stumped by Xiao Ru's question. She did not touch a single drop of the soup, so even if Xiao Ru did something to the soup, it wouldn't make sense. Duke Ning gave a cold laugh and said, "You keep saying that there was nothing in the soup and that Zhao Rong's matter has nothing to do with you. If it really has nothing to do with you, then why do you look so panicked? It's clear that you have a guilty conscience, so if I don't torture you, you won't tell the truth. If you really want to prove your innocence, then this duke will ask you, do you dare to accept the punishment? If you don't change your confession after the punishment, then it will prove that you are innocent and this duke will not pursue your crime. Otherwise, you will not be able to escape from this matter." His words were very powerful. There was a hidden meaning in his words and a trap in his trap. Xiao Ru's thoughts were very pure. In terms of scheming, she wasn't even qualified to carry Duke Ning's shoes. When she heard Duke Ning say that as long as she didn't change her confession after the punishment, she didn't even think about it before loudly saying, "Of course I dare. If I didn't do it, then I didn't do it. I definitely won't confess under torture." She thought that as long as she clenched her teeth, she wouldn't change her confession. Not to mention that this matter had nothing to do with the young miss. As long as the young miss wasn't implicated in this matter, even if she suffered a bit of pain, it wouldn't be a big deal. Duke Ning looked at Qin Ning and said, "All right, since it's like this, come, punish her." Several guards pressed Xiao Ru to the ground and someone brought over a stick. This punishment was different from the palm strike from last time. It was a solid spanking on the butt. If the strength wasn't controlled properly, it was unknown how many palace servants would die under this punishment. Xiaoru was young and had just entered the palace, so how could she understand the power and twists and turns of this punishment? Qin Ning gave a sigh in her heart. She thought that this Duke Ning was truly an old ginger that was spicy. He was more than 100 times stronger than that idiot Zhao Rong princess. His words were very dignified and watertight, instantly trapping Xiaoru inside. She took the initiative to say that she was willing to be punished. Like this, even if Mo Chuan wanted to protect her, he couldn't say anything. But this matter couldn't be blamed on Xiaoru. How could she be Duke Ning's match? Looking at Duke Ning's intentions, he didn't just want to beat Xiaoru into confessing, he wanted to beat her to death. He wanted to use Xiaoru as an example to him, a monkey. But with Duke Ning's ability he could only bully Xiaoru a bit. If he wanted to bully her, there was no way. Do you take my words as wind passing by your ears? This consort has already said that she belongs to this consort. Whoever dares to touch her is equivalent to touching this consort. This queen looked at the guards and spoke in a calm voice, but it sent a chill down their spines. The guards were in a dilemma. The duke wanted to fight, but the empress didn't allow it. Who would listen to whom? They didn't dare to lower their staffs, nor could they take them back. They just held them in midair with awkward expressions on their faces. Mo Chuan calmly said, "Very good, you even dare to disobey the empress orders. This one sees that you don't need to do your jobs anymore. Come, take away their tokens and send them out of the palace, never to be hired again." The guards' faces turned ashen as they kneeled down on the ground. They shouted, "Emperor, forgive us. Emperor, have mercy." Chapter 1394. Duke Ning's face became very ugly. His eyes turned dark and it seemed like they were about to drip water. All the ministers in the hall shrunk their necks, not daring to breathe too loudly. They all understood that the emperor wholeheartedly supported the empress. Whoever dared to go against the empress was going against the emperor, so they would not have a good ending. Duke Ning wanted to use the empress maids as an example, but he never thought that the emperor would make the first move. He would use the guards as an example, making an example out of this old monkey Duke Ning. At the heart of the struggle, if anyone were to stand on the same side as Duke Ning, then that would be someone who didn't know the actual situation. The ministers all took a few steps back, staying as far away from Duke Ning as they could, showing that they had nothing to do with him. A bunch of fence-sitters who see the wind and set their sails, pooh. Duke Ning looked at everyone's expressions. He viciously cursed in his heart, but his face remained calm the entire time. He calmly stepped forward. "Emperor, this girl is willing to be punished to prove her innocence. It's not that this minister wants to force her to confess. Zhao Rong has suffered this kind of humiliation today, this minister just wants to prove her innocence. If this proves that this matter has nothing to do with this girl, this minister is willing to personally apologize to Miss Xiaoru." His words were very reasonable. With his status as a duke, he was willing to apologize to a servant. This was already giving Xiaoru a large amount of face. But Qin Ning and Mo Chuan understood his meaning, so they still insisted on torturing Xiaoru. Qin Ning's brows jumped up and she revealed a smile. "Sir Duke, if you want to prove that the princess consort's matter is related to Xiaoru, you don't need to use the stick. In fact, there is a simple way to prove that Xiaoru has nothing to do with this matter at all." "Oh, a simple way? What is it?" Duke Ning also raised his brows as he confronted Qin Ning. "Since Sir Duke and the princess consort suspect that the problem is with this soup, then this princess will confirm whether there is a problem with this soup or not." Qin Ning walked in front of the princess consort's table and picked up the soup. Without any hesitation, she drank it all down without leaving a single drop. "Sir Duke, princess consort, you should be assured now, right?" She showed the empty bowl to the two of them. Duke Ning and Princess Zhao Rong were dumbfounded and speechless. This move was clean and beautiful, instantly shutting their mouths. "High Duke, in my opinion, you'd better think of a way to cure Her Highness instead of suspecting that someone wants to harm Her Highness. Not to mention that Her Highness has unique skills. If someone really has the guts to harm her, she'll be the first to find out. Moreover, the courtiers are all here today. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, I'm afraid it won't be that easy to poison Her Highness." Qin Ning's voice was clear and melodious as she spoke, making all the ministers nod their heads. "The Empress is right. That's right, that's right. Who would have the guts to poison Zhao Rong Princess in front of so many people? That's impossible. Her Majesty the Empress has personally confirmed that all of this is just Lord High Duke's conjecture. It's all unfounded. The ministers all agreed with Chen Ning's words. Chapter 1395. However, Duke Ning was not willing to admit that Zhao Rong was sick in front of everyone. If he could find a scapegoat, then he could completely cover up Zhao Rong's disgraceful behavior today. He never thought that his wishful thinking would be easily defeated by Chen Ning. What should he do now? Should he continue to insist that someone was trying to harm Zhao Rong, or should he bring his disgraced daughter back to the palace? He could not make a decision right now. Chen Ning looked at his expression and guessed what he was thinking. She revealed a faint smile and said, "Sir Duke, this golden opportunity is right in front of you. If you don't know how to cherish it and miss this chance, it won't come again." Duke Ning looked up at her and knit his brows in confusion. What does the Empress mean? Please forgive this minister for not understanding. Chen Ning raised her brows. The princess has a strange illness and it is only temporarily under control. Whether it will relapse in the future, no one knows. The #1 divine doctor in the world is right in front of the Duke. But the Duke is not asking for the divine doctor's medicine and instead wants to find the origin of the princess' strange illness. Isn't this neglecting the essentials and missing this golden opportunity? It has to be known that the divine doctor will not easily cure a person. Everyone knows that the divine doctor has 3 rules. As long as the patient falls into one of these 3 rules, the divine doctor will not help them. If the divine doctor is willing to give the princess a prescription, then the so-called treating a person must be treated to the end. Since the divine doctor can do it for the first time, he will definitely cure the princess' illness. Sir Duke, you need to strike while the iron is hot. This princess will say this much. I hope that the Duke will take care of himself. After she said this, she revealed a faint smile. She pulled Xiao Ru's hand and walked back to her seat. She calmly sat down and no longer cared about the Duke Ning father and daughter. Zhao Rong princess was confused hearing this and her heart was filled with hostility towards Chen Ning. Hearing that she had a strange illness, she was filled with anger. She blurted out, "Father, your daughter is not sick at all. Someone must have done something to your daughter. Your daughter really is not sick. That petermatitis, your daughter has never even heard of it, it's all a lie." "Shut up. Don't speak nonsense." Duke Ning's face sunk as he shouted at Zhao Rong princess. Chen Ning's words were like a slap to his head, instantly waking him up. He thought to himself that he was too muddle-headed, forgetting the most important matter. The Empress was right. There was a great Buddha in front of him, but he was not in a hurry to burn incense. Instead, he wanted to turn around and leave the temple. Many thanks for the Empress reminder. This minister is filled with gratitude. Duke Ning gave a slight nod to Chen Ning to express his gratitude. Chen Ning revealed a faint smile. "No problem, no problem." She looked at Gu Qingze. "Chen Ning." From start to finish, Gu Qingze didn't say a single word. If he hadn't been smart, Xiao Ru's but would have been split open. Of the Rong Xian Ning's Chen's master. From the looks of it, he was quite happy that he was the scapegoat. Then he couldn't let him be idle. He might as well push the matter of Zhao Rong Junju to him. That way he wouldn't have to sit on the side and act as if nothing had happened. Gu Qingze had been resting in his chair with his eyes closed. Even the strange sight of Princess Zhao Rong hugging a large tree and rubbing herself against it did not cause him to open his eyes. Everyone thought that he had fallen asleep. Chapter 1396. Chen Ning's guess was not wrong. Gu Qingze was not asleep. His eyes were closed, but he had heard every single word Chen Ning said. He couldn't help feeling angry and finding this funny. He had come to the palace to help her vent her anger, but this little girl had pushed that rotten branch to him. She wanted him to treat that dogshit princess? But who did she think he, Gu Qingze, was? Someone who would treat any dog or cat. He wasn't a veterinarian. Duke Ning pulled Zhao Rong princess over to Gu Qingze's side. He saw that his eyes were closed and his breathing was heavy, like he was asleep. If it was normal times he would not dare disturb Gu Qingze's rest, but now... "Zhao Rong, kneel," he shouted. Zhao Rong princess was stunned as she looked at Duke Ning in disbelief. "Father, what are you saying? Why should your daughter kneel? The divine Dr. Gu has cured your strange illness. Shouldn't you kneel down to express your gratitude to the divine Dr. Gu? Father has always taught you that you need to be grateful. Could it be that you've ignored all of this? Why aren't you kneeling down and thanking the divine Dr. Gu?" His eyes lit up as he stared at Zhao Rong princess. Zhao Rong princess's heart was filled with unwillingness. Although she wanted to win over Gu Qingze, that did not mean she was willing to kneel down to him. "Father, your daughter is a princess personally granted by the emperor and he is just a commoner. You want your dignified princess to kneel down to a commoner? This is an insult to the royal family's dignity. What royal family's dignity? For dignity you have to disregard your principles as a human? What did father teach you normally? If you don't kneel down, I will break your legs. Duke Ning angrily shouted. Although Zhao Rong princess was loved by her father, seeing Duke Ning's anger, her heart was filled with fear. No matter how unwilling she was, she could only kneel down in grievance. This commoner, commoner. This princess kneeling to you today, I'm afraid you won't be able to accept it. If there is any disaster in the future, don't blame this princess. She looked at Gu Qingze with a long face as she muttered in her heart. Speak. Duke Ning shouted again. Speak. What do you want me to say? Zhao Rong princess revealed a wronged expression as she blinked her eyes. Words of thanks to the divine Dr. Gu. Don't tell me you need me to teach you these words? Alright, I'll speak. Zhao Rong region princess gritted her teeth and recited as if she was reciting a book. Many thanks to godly Dr. Gu's great kindness. You have cured this region princess's illness, and this region princess cannot thank you enough. Whatever you want, this region princess can give it to you. Do you want gold or silver? As long as you say it, I can afford it. The people in the hall all looked at her in shock. Everyone thought this Zhao Rong Junju looked intelligent, but who would have thought that she was just an embroidered pillow? She looked good on the outside but had a belly full of grass. Duke Ning couldn't believe that such brainless words would come out of his own daughter's mouth. He was both angry and anxious. He slapped Zhao Rong Junju's back and said angrily, "You, this girl, what are you saying? I will kill you." He raised his palm again and slapped Zhao Rong Junju's back. But while the sound was loud, the force behind it was light. Chapter 1398. Before Gu Qingze finished speaking, Duke Ning and Zhao Rong Junju's expressions changed. Especially Zhao Rong Junju. She couldn't help but raise her hand to touch her face, her eyes filled with terror. She was not afraid of death, but she was afraid of losing her beautiful appearance. Without this beautiful face, she would never be able to obtain cousin Emperor's heart. Oh right, Duke Ning, you have to remember, do not touch Junju's skin. Otherwise you will also get this disease. If you accidentally touch it, immediately wash it with boiled vinegar. Remember. Gu Qingze's last few words were the straw that broke the camel's back. Zhao Rong Junju suddenly fell to the ground and started to cry. No, I don't want to. I don't want to become ugly, I don't want white fish scales on my body, I don't want. Father, if your daughter becomes like that, your daughter might as well die. Duke Ning stared at her blankly, his expression complicated. Rong, you will be fine. With Dr. Gu here you will definitely be fine. He hugged Zhao Rong Juanju's shoulder and comforted. He suddenly turned around and faced Gu Qingze. His knees bent and he knelt down. Dr. Gu, you definitely have a way to cure Zhao Rong's disease, right? Your medical skills are the best in the world and no one can compare. As long as you can cure Zhao Rong, you can have anything you want. When Duke Ning knelt, it caused an uproar in the hall. The dignified Duke was actually kneeling to a commoner. But the moment he knelt down, Gu Qingze had already turned his wheelchair and dodged. He did not accept the other's kowtow. Duke Ning, will you keep your word? No matter what I want, you will agree? Gu Qingze's expression was very strange. He seemed to be smiling but not smiling, angry but not angry. That serene gaze caused Duke Ning's heart to jump. But right now he was like an arrow on a bowstring that had to be released. Agree to everything. This Duke's words carry weight. As long as the genius doctor can cure Zhao Rong's strange disease, no matter what the genius doctor wants, this Duke will definitely satisfy the genius doctor's request. He said powerfully and the expression on his face was extremely sincere. He had already heard from Gu Qingze's words that the other really had a way to cure his daughter's psoriasis. As long as he could cure the strange disease, he, the dignified Duke of Ning, was wealthy enough to rival a country. He could have anything he wanted. As long as he could ask for it, he would definitely be able to do it. Therefore, his words were very sincere, without the slightest intention of going back on his words. You are willing to swear in front of everyone? Gu Qingze was not moved and said coolly. Yes, this. Duke Ning raised his hand without hesitation. With the Emperor of Heaven above and the Lady of Earth below, everyone present can be my witness. As long as the ancient divine physician can cure Zhao Rong's illness, I will do my best to satisfy the ancient divine physician's request. If I go against this oath, heaven and earth will not tolerate it. Very well. Since that's the case, I want a promise from you, Gu Qingze said word by word. Zhao Rong Juanju's heart jumped. She felt that these words were very familiar, as if she had heard them somewhere before. She suddenly remembered that when she had asked the thousand-faced young master for help, he had also asked her for a promise from her father. Chapter 1399. Zhao Rong Juanju looked at Gu Qingze in front of her. He was wearing a coarse hemp shirt that had been washed so many times that it had turned white. His appearance could only be considered delicate and pretty, but his entire body's bearing was like that of an orchid in an empty valley. He stood out from the crowd, like a gurgling stream, transparent and clear, without the slightest bit of worldly air. Thousand-faced young master, on the other hand, wore a fiery red robe. His appearance was even more enchanting than a woman's. Once he appeared, he could steal everyone's attention. He was completely out of place with Gu Qingze. So strange, why did she compare the two of them? Zhao Rong Princess shook her head and shook the absurd thought out of her mind. What she cared about the most was her illness. As long as it could be cured, what was a promise? Even if it was 8 or 10 promises, she would make her father agree immediately. Father, Miracle Dr. Gu just wants a promise. What are you hesitating for? Quickly agree. Zhao Rong Princess saw that Duke Ning didn't agree and became anxious. She couldn't help but urge. Duke Ning lowered his head and muttered. He didn't think that Gu Qingze wanted a promise from him. Miracle Dr. Gu, what kind of promise do you want me to make? He probed Gu Qingze. Because a promise was different from a condition. As long as he gave this promise, no matter what the other person asked, he had to fulfill it without hesitation. Otherwise he would be breaking his promise and would be despised by everyone. This was the reason why he couldn't agree so easily. This promise? I haven't thought of what I want yet. What? Duke doesn't agree. No matter, I was just saying. Today I ate and drank to my heart's content. Thank you, Duke, for your invitation. This commoner is very grateful. It's getting late, this commoner will leave now. Gu Qingze didn't care. There was no anger on his face. He cupped his hands at Duke Ning and turned his wheelchair to walk out of the hall. Father, why won't you agree? It's just a promise. What are you hesitating about? The miracle doctor is leaving, why aren't you chasing after him? Zhao Rong Princess panicked. She quickly ran over and stopped in front of Gu Qingze. Miracle Dr. Gu, this princess agrees on behalf of my father. Gu Qingze shook his head and said, Princess promise doesn't count. This commoner must hear Duke Ning personally promise. Zhao Rong Princess stomped her feet and ran back to Duke Ning's side. She shouted, Father, you don't love Ronger anymore? What's so special about a promise? Could it be that in Father's heart your daughter isn't even worth a promise? Since that's the case, Father, you don't have to care about your daughter's life or death. Rather than dying from my body rot in the future, your daughter would rather die now. After she finished speaking, she gritted her teeth, stomped her feet, and slammed into the pillar of the hall. Your Highness, you mustn't. The hall filled with cries of shock of the hall, and all of the ministers turned pale. Chen Ning's lips curled up as she found this very funny. Zhao Rongjuanju's act was really fake. She had martial arts. If she really wanted to die, she had countless ways to do so. Why would she be so stupid as to use this method of hitting a pillar? However, Gu Qingze's strange request was beyond her expectations. She had originally thought that Gu Qingze had tormented Zhao Rongjunju and humiliated her in front of everyone to vent her anger, but now it seemed that there was more to it than meets the eye. Chapter 1400. Chen Ning's mind turned, but she couldn't guess Gu Qingze's intentions, so she just threw it to the side. Since Zhao Rong Princess was putting on a show, how could she not add oil to the fire and make this show even more exciting? Jue Feng, quickly save Zhao Rong Princess. She raised her voice and shouted. In the next moment, Jue Feng turned into a blur and appeared in front of the pillar. He pushed out with his palms, and a strong internal strength pushed Zhao Rong Princess back several steps. Chen Ning waved her long sleeves and stood up from her chair. She slowly opened her mouth and said, Sir Duke, this princess really can't watch this any longer, so I have to say a few words of justice. The princess has been away from the capital city for 3 years, and it has been rumored that the duke has been missing his daughter so much that he hasn't gone to court for 3 years. Everyone knows how much he loves his daughter, so anyone who mentions the duke will give him a thumbs up. However, seeing once is better than hearing 100 times. Today the princess has a strange illness and the duke's actions are commendable. He is even willing to kneel down to the divine doctor for the princess. This kind of father and daughter love is very touching, moving everyone here, but who would have thought? When she said this, she purposely dragged out her words. When everyone's attention was drawn to her, she continued to speak. Dr. Gu doesn't want fame and fortune, nor does he want gold, silver, or jewelry. If it's just a promise from Lord High Duke, why hasn't Lord High Duke agreed? Is it really as Her Highness said? In Lord High Duke's heart, your daughter is not as important as a promise? If these words were to be spread, I'm afraid everyone who heard it would feel cold. The good reputation that the Duke has gained in the capital city over the past 3 years would no longer exist. She spoke with sincerity, and the officials all nodded their heads silently. They thought that the Empress was still the most reasonable person. The Duke's actions were indeed a little unreasonable. Duke Ning's face turned red and white, looking incomparably awkward. He really wanted to refute Chen Ning. Don't you feel pain talking from the sidelines? If you were asked to casually agree to a promise, would you dare? How could this promise be easily given to someone? Once he made a promise, he had to keep it. If the other side told him to eat shit, he couldn't drink urine. If the other side told him to die, he had to hang himself. If he couldn't keep it, he would become the laughing stock of the world. Especially since he had made an oath in front of the emperor and all the ministers, he couldn't go back on his promise. Otherwise, everyone would look down on him. Wherever he went, there would be people pointing fingers at him and spitting spittle at him. He thought about it again, but he still did not dare agree. Chapter 1401. She had thought that the person who loved her the most in this world was her father, but she never thought that he wouldn't even agree to a small promise. Compared to her royal cousin, her father was just too cold and heartless. She was disheartened and suddenly took out a knife from a guard's waist. With a flash of the knife, a strand of hair fell to the ground. That guard was shocked, not being able to react at all. Everyone cried out in surprise again as they watched Zhao Rongjunju hold the shining knife at her waist and hold it across her neck. Zhao Rong, what are you doing? Quickly put down the knife. Duke Ning's heart was filled with fear. He wanted to charge forward and steal the knife, but he was afraid of hurting Zhao Rong. He was so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat. All right, isn't it just a promise? This duke will agree. Divine Dr. Gu, please quickly treat Zhao Rong. Facing his daughter's threat, he was helpless. He couldn't care about anything else and could only agree. Father, you really agree? Zhao Rong's eyes flashed with a look of joy. I agree. Duke Ning helplessly nodded. Divine Dr. Gu, my father has agreed to your promise. Quickly treat this princess. This princess is starting to feel itchy again. Zhao Rong threw down the knife on her waist and ran in front of Gu Qingze with a happy expression. She impatiently stretched out her left wrist, waiting for Gu Qingze to take her pulse. Gu Qingze did not look at Zhao Rong. His eyes were focused on Duke Ning's face and he had a thoughtful expression on his face. Chen Ning could see from his expression that he let out a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Strange, why did he have this kind of strange expression? But Gu Qing's thoughts, she had never been able to guess them. He was like an unfathomable sea, only a small part of him was shown to outsiders. As for what he was thinking in his heart, only he knew. Gu Qing's stared at Duke Ning and said word by word, "Very well. Please remember this promise. This commoner will one day make Lord Duke fulfill today's promise." He did not know why, but when Duke Ning saw his calm eyes, he felt a strange chill run down his spine, going straight to his heart. He suddenly felt regret, but he had already said it. In front of the emperor and the ministers, he could not take it back, so he could only brace himself and say, Divine Dr. Gu is looking down on this duke too much. This duke's words are like a mountain, I will not go back on them. This is my duke's palace's token and I will give it to you now. If there is a day you need this duke to fulfill his promise, you can take this ring and the country will welcome you. After he said this, he took off a jade ring and placed it in Gu Qing's hand. This beautiful and generous speech won the unanimous applause of everyone present. Duke really has the courage and has the guts. He is our role model. Lord High Duke, your promise is as solid as a mountain. I admire you. Hearing the praises from the crowd, Duke Ning revealed a smile on his face. He couldn't conceal the pride in his heart. Gu Qing's played with the jasper thumb ring in his hand and wore it on his middle finger. The corners of his mouth curled up as he smiled faintly. This was the first time he had smiled since he entered the main hall. His appearance could only be considered delicate and not outstanding, but with this faint smile, it made everyone's eyes light up. Is he waiting outside? Is he here? Gu Qing's shook his head. No need. Gu Qing's shook his head. No need. My disciple is right here. His face darkened. Why aren't you showing yourself? Do you want me to personally take action? After saying this, his right hand slammed down on the armrest. A pair of cold lightning-like eyes looked at Chen Ning. Everyone followed his line of sight, and their eyes widened as they thought to themselves, that's impossible, right? Could it be that the Empress was the disciple of the Divine Doctor? Then they saw Chen Ning slowly stand up from her chair and walk over to Gu Qing's. She gave a bow and her voice was as clear as a silver bell. The ministers all felt like something was wrong. It was like they had been struck by lightning as their faces turned into a mess. The prefectural officials all had a bad feeling. All of them looked as if they had been struck by lightning, and their faces were in a mess. Chapter 1403. But the Zhaorong princess was not as shrewd as him. She immediately cried out in shock, "Impossible, this is impossible. How could that little fox spirit be the Divine Doctor's disciple? How could she have this kind of good luck? This was impossible." Chen Ning turned around to look at her. With a faint smile, she said in a teasing voice, "What does the princess think is impossible? Nothing is possible. You. How could you be the Divine Doctor's disciple?" The Zhaorong princess went crazy with jealousy and her eyes turned red. The Divine Doctor skills that Gu Qing's had displayed in the main hall had shocked everyone. He had become the most dazzling pearl in today's banquet, someone that everyone wanted to curry favor with. For this kind of dazzling person, if she could win him over and have him become her helper, it would show how different she was from the masses. So she was willing to lower her status and treat Gu Qing's in a pleasant manner. She even thought about something even further. After Gu Qing's cured her illness, she might as well use some tricks to firmly grasp his heart and make him bend his head to her and obey her every order. To deal with men, her master had taught her many methods, but she did not have time to use them on Mo Chuan. However, she believed that her master's method must be very effective. This ancient Divine Doctor was young and had an unapproachable look on his face. Presumably he didn't even know what a woman was. He was simply a fresh, tender and rare fruit. As long as she thought about it a little, he wouldn't fall for her. Of course this was all in the future. She believed that with her appearance, methods and charm, Gu Qing's would sooner or later fall under her skirt. But this dream of hers was too far away. It was so far away that she did not even have time to realize it before her beautiful dream was shattered. Then does the princess mean that you don't believe that the Divine Doctor is my master? Do you think that the Divine Doctor doesn't have the qualifications to be my master or that I don't have the qualifications to be the Divine Doctor's disciple? Chen Ning was not angry. Rather she asked her with a smile. The Zhaorong princess did not even think as she loudly said, "Of course you don't have the qualifications. You're not worthy at all." Chen Ning nodded and said to Gu Qing's, Master, others say that I don't have the qualifications to be your disciple. Why don't you kick your disciple out and take someone else with the qualifications? Gu Qingze coldly said, very good. Since others look down on you, then you don't need to give her a prescription to treat her illness. Master is tired. Find a quiet place for Master. Master wants to have a good sleep. Everything else in your imperial palace is good. It's just that there are too many mice. They're so noisy that I can't sleep. Yes, Master. Qin Ning pushed his chair and walked out. The two of them spoke as if there was no one else around them, causing everyone's jaws to drop. The image of Gu Qingze in their hearts was incomparably lofty, as unreachable as the immortals in the heavens. The Empress also had a respectable status, but the tone of the two people talking was not like that of a master and disciple, but the most ordinary conversation between two people of the same generation. Could they really be master and disciple? But it was not at all. However, the Empress did call the ancient divine physician as her teacher, and the ancient divine physician did not hesitate to call himself his teacher. There were those who were envious and those who were jealous, but the ones with the most complicated feelings were Duke Ning and the Zhaorong princess. Chapter 1404. Especially Zhaorong Junju. Her chest heaved up and down and her stomach was about to explode from anger. Not even in her dreams would she have thought that the person she begged and begged would be the fox spirit that she loathed the most. She wouldn't beg. Even if she was beaten to death, she wouldn't beg a single word from that slut. She would rather die from itching and have her skin rot than bow to her love rival. Duke Ning was more shrewd than his daughter and his thoughts were more complicated than his daughter's. With a thought, he quickly chased after her. Empress, Divine Dr. Gu, please wait a moment. What else does the Duke want? Gu Qingze coldly looked at him. Just now my daughter was too shocked, so she spoke incoherently. What she meant was that the Empress being accepted as a disciple by the divine Dr. Gu is a blessing that others can't even beg for. It truly makes one envious. This Duke will first congratulate the two of you. One can find a master and the other can find a good disciple. This is truly a cause for celebration. Duke Ning's face was filled with joy and words came out of his mouth. He cupped his hands at the two of them and the smile on his face was very sincere. As for what he was thinking in his stomach, no one knew. When the ministers heard Duke Ning's words, they finally reacted. Now was the best time to curry favor with the Empress and the divine Dr. Gu. Thus, everyone crowded around them and congratulated the two of them. There was only the Princess Zhaorong standing on the outside. She gritted her teeth as she stared at Qin Ning who was surrounded by everyone. She was clearly the main character today. This kind of glory, it should have all been hers. But she had not tasted the glory of being the main character at all. Rather she had lost all her face and she had a strange disease called psoriasis. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She almost crushed her teeth from gritting them. Zhaorong, come here. Why aren't you congratulating the Empress and the divine Dr. Gu? When the Princess Zhaorong's stomach was hurting from her anger, Duke Ning pushed everyone aside and grabbed her hand, bringing her in front of Qin Ning. Congratulate? Why should I congratulate them? Father, why are you helping an outsider today? I am your daughter and today is your daughter's birthday. They aren't congratulating your daughter and are instead trying to flatter someone else? You want this princess to congratulate them? The Princess Zhaorong pushed Duke Ning away and angrily shouted. She was used to being the ruler and having everyone revolve around her. How could she endure this kind of cold treatment? Duke Ning couldn't wait to stuff her mouth with something. Why was this girl's brain so stupid? How could she say such offensive words out loud? Chapter 1405. Empress, Divine Dr. Gu, congratulations to the two of you. The Empress truly has good luck, being accepted as a disciple by the divine Dr. Gu. Rong is filled with envy. Zhaorong Princess' words were very sincere. Her eyes had turned red from envy and jealousy. Seeing him today, she finally understood how famous the title of the #1 divine doctor in the world was. If she could walk out with the title of the #1 divine doctor's disciple, perhaps she would be even more famous than the Zhaorong princess. After all, she was only a princess of the West Chu country. If she left West Chu, she was nothing. As for Gu Qingze, he was the #1 divine doctor in the world. No matter where he went, he would be the target of everyone's flattery. As long as she was by Gu Qingze's side, she would be shrouded in glory and halo. Unfortunately, the best spot had been taken by that vixen, that little slut. Why was the heavens so unfair? All the good things were given to her without any hesitation. Her royal cousin, the #1 divine doctor in the world. They all treated her like a treasure, completely ignoring her who was better than that little slut in every aspect. Zhaorong Princess thought about it and the fire in her heart began to burn again. However, she thought of her father's words and suppressed the fire in her heart, maintaining a smile on her face. Only this smile was even uglier than crying. Duke Ning couldn't help glaring at her again. He gave 2 coughs and attracted everyone's eyes to him. Empress, just now, the ancient divine doctor said that you have special knowledge in treating psoriasis. They say that a good teacher produces a good disciple. Since the ancient divine doctor praises the Empress so much, then your medical skills must be very good. This subject wants to ask the Empress to write a prescription for Zhaorong. As long as Zhaorong's illness is cured, this subject will be filled with gratitude towards the Empress. Chen Ning revealed a faint smile. Sir Duke, this princess has only been apprenticed to a master recently and my master's medical skills have not even touched the surface. How could he cure an illness or give a prescription? You saying this really makes this princess blush with shame. What she said was the truth. In terms of medical skills, she didn't even know how to take a pulse, so she really didn't know anything. But in everyone's ears, it sounded like she was being modest and evasive. Duke Ning was originally doubtful of her medical skills, but after hearing her words he felt that she had some skills. The Empress is too modest. This minister believes the divine Dr. Gu's recommendation. If he says you can do it, then you can do it. I asked the Empress to give this minister face and save my daughter. Chen Ning thought, you're saying it better than singing and you're giving me face. What face do you have?